Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 447 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and some amazing stuff has happened. Not only was our fundraiser able to reach $10,444 last I checked from Sunday night, not only that, the Wagner is now openly threatening the Russian government with violence, and it appears that they are in the process, or they are undergoing, a revolt against the Russian government, one way or another. It is something that we've kind of seen coming for a long time now, but that also is happening while the flanks around Bakhmut are collapsing, and it appears that if the Wagner stays in its current position, they may be encircled. So, it is some major news tonight, and of course a great time to return right back into the news. And so we're going to be starting off tonight with a couple of warm-ups. Of course, we always have to talk about what's happening in Russia first and foremost, and this time from the area around Astrakhan, which is the very southern end of the Volga River, we heard that Russian soldiers that have just been mobilized are not getting sleeping bags, and they're now having to beg the civilian populace for some sleeping bags. And so, here's the clip. Dear Igor Yurovich, we are a personnel mobilized from the Astrakhan region. We arrived in the city of Vladikavkaz at the Tarskaya training ground. We ask you to provide assistance in giving us sleeping bags. And we can see the unit right there. Dear Vladimir Volodymyrovich Putin, please tell me how this could have happened. Just yesterday, I was sent a video where mobilized Astrakhani people asked the governor of Astrakhan region for help to help them get sleeping bags. In the news, the regional government reports that all help is due to United Russia and businessmen. And in fact, it turns out that this is another deception. It turns out that the governor has time to ride with bikers and close the motorcycle season, and he cannot help the mobilized guys with even getting sleeping bags. There is no need to visit the forums in this time, and there's a mess in the region. At concerts with fireworks and singers and stage money, then there is the grandmother, and we collect help for the guys at school. Yes, if you didn't know, dear Vladimir Putin, then in the Astrakhan region they collect financial aid in schools, universities, kindergartens, hospitals, and so on. From each schoolboy, they collect 1,000 rubles. More than 100,000 schoolchildren are taught in the Astrakhan region, and this is more than 100 million rubles. For such money, it would be possible to allocate the most modern equipment to each mobilized person. And in fact, the mobilized guys do not have even the most elementary things. Everyone is asking one question: where is the money? Did the governor and his entourage really put it in their pockets? The grandmothers, as a manager of nothing, thought that at least in military affairs they would help. But it turned out that he was in the same direction as a nobody. As they say, only coffins can be made with the hands of a grandmother. Maybe people will die less. The Astrakhan people are already tired of listening to all these fairy tales. We must do something, and all the hope is on you, dear Vladimir Putin. And that's the end of the clip.
Isn't it kind of funny as the war goes on for longer? At first they were begging for weapons, they needed guns. Now they're begging for more essential stuff like just sleeping bags to sleep in.
I'm telling you, it really does show how bad things are getting. Things are getting so bad, they can't even provide the Russians with probably like a $10 sleeping bag per soldier. That's how cash-strapped the Russian government is. And it's not that, I guess you could say, it's not really that they're stealing the money. They've been stealing the money the whole time, so that's not really a new factor that's being put into the equation. They've probably been stealing the same amount and maybe a little bit of extra up till now, so that corruption's always stayed there. The problem is that they are so broke, and they've already spent so much money just to give the first waves in front of these guys just the basic bare essentials for them to go to war, that they have no money left for these guys now to even give them sleeping bags. So now the burden and the weight of mobilizing the Russian citizenry is being put on the Russian public, and now they have to find the money for their own citizens to have sleeping bags to go to war in. And that tells you how bad it's really gotten for them, because they're not even asking anymore for non-rusty AKs. You're just asking for something to sleep in. That's how bad it's gotten. But in other news, we did see that Lukashenko returned into the public world today, and let's see how he's doing. I'm sure he's fine. You know, I'm sure there's nothing wrong with him. You know, and here's a picture of him right here, actually, and oh my god. Oh my god. Look at his hand.
Man, he looks rough.
Man, this hand right here looks like one of those little surgical gloves that you, like, put a straw up to and you, like, inflate. That's what his hand looks like.
It looks bad. I wonder what the problem was, because we really haven't heard yet.
We really haven't heard, and if you also notice, his face is, like, red as a beet nearly. He doesn't look good at all, I'll say that. And it seems as though this is a continuing saga from when he was shown to be sickly at the May 9th Victory Day parade. He was so sickly they had to load him onto the back of a golf cart and kind of just cart him around the Red Square while Putin walked around. Now he's back in Belarus. He was in the hospital for a little bit. He's now out. His hand is swollen up like a whole bunch of bratwurst sausages that have been sewn together, and he's not looking well at all. So who's to say what's really wrong with him? Something is bad wrong with him. We know that. But we don't know how bad off and how bad wrong he is physically, but he is certainly not doing well at all. And I see some people saying in the live chat, maybe a stroke, maybe it's poison, maybe it's congestive heart failure. Honestly, I would actually have to go out of all those options with most likely congestive heart failure. This looks a lot like something that I've seen before, because someone we knew actually did die from congestive heart failure about 5 years ago, and their hands and feet started to look a lot like that when they were getting towards the later phases of congestive heart failure. That also may explain why he wasn't able to walk at the Red Square, because once you have congestive heart failure, physical activity becomes very difficult because your heart isn't pumping enough nutrients and oxygen around the body for your body to really be able to function well. So it may be that he's dealing, like we said, with old age, and he's starting to deal with congestive heart failure. Unless if he got a heart transplant, which is incredibly risky, and I believe even in the modern day at this moment, still something of a risky procedure, he will probably not survive much longer, maybe a few years at most. That would be my guess. And so with that, I hope we address that further well. Still pretty interesting to see. Honestly, I've got to say, it kind of looks like King Charles' hand in that one picture, if you know what I'm talking about, Matthew.
I couldn't really hear you. There was a lag for a minute.
It kind of looks like King Charles' hand in that one picture where he was holding his hands up in front of the camera.
Somewhat. I see some folks saying it could have been like a really bad IV placement. Maybe because he's getting older, it kind of messed his hand up a little bit. That could be it, but I'm not really sure. He's looking in bad shape just overall. Looks like they took him out of the hospital and put him right here on the side of the road.
It really does. And also, I believe Trisser1, if he is here tonight, he is pretty much our in-house doctor slash physician. So tell us, what do you think about the swollen hand? Because honestly, I gotta say, that's quite a mitten right there. I mean, like that thing could be given a contract in the New York Mets and probably catch baseballs in the outfield. But with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news in Belarus, and we're now going to be moving and making sure that we don't have any international news to cover. We're now going to be moving into Kiev, because we've had some really big news, of course, once again heating up on our way into Bakhmut, because the news once again today was as about crazy as every other day, and I would honestly have to say the air attack news we got is probably the craziest news we've heard so far. Over the past 24 hours, a missile attack was levied against the city of Kiev and against the entirety of Ukraine once more. Over those past few hours, over the nighttime, something amazing happened. And of course, many of y'all know that it wasn't too long ago that the Ukrainians declared that they had shot down the first Kinzhal hypersonic missile in history to ever be shot down with the Patriot air defense system. It appears that not only were they able to shoot that one down, but in this missile attack, they were able to shoot down an entire 6 Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, according to Ukrainian numbers. This has got to be one of the most, I guess you could say, revolutionary things as far as the propaganda circles that the Russians have been making. And I know that many people are going to be saying this. The Kinzhal isn't truly a hypersonic missile. And by most definitions, it hardly meets the criteria of a hypersonic missile. Y'all would be correct. But the Russians, up until this day, have marketed this thing as a uncatchable missile. It goes so fast that nothing can catch it. That's what they've told the entire world. That's what everyone around the world has believed up until this point. And just until about a few days ago, that appeared to be the going trend. No Kinzhal that had ever been fired in Ukraine until just a few days ago had ever been intercepted and shot down until that one around 4 days ago. Now it seems that they're able to shoot down loads of them. They got 6 Kinzhals, and the Russians only have around 80 of these things, at least from what we know. They also shot down another 9 caliber cruise missiles, a fairly normal affair when it comes to missile attacks by Russia, 6 Shahed 136s. They were also able to destroy 3 what appears to be Orlons from the outline, and then also ballistic missiles from the S-400 surface-to-air missile system. This one is also a fairly interesting one to note as well, because way early on in the war, we would see that all of the missiles being fired by the Russians were Iskanders, Calibers, or one other variant. I forgot what that other variant is. It was like a, I believe it was like a TU something, I believe. I forgot that one because it hasn't been used in such a long time over the past few missile attacks. But what is interesting is that we've seen is these missile attacks go on, and everyone's been saying they're going to be running out of missiles to target the Ukrainians with eventually. It does appear that that is starting to become the case, because now a large amount of their attacks against Ukrainian civilians and Ukrainian citizenry is being conducted almost entirely with Shaheds, or a heavily reduced cruise missile number, or they're starting to bring in S-400 surface-to-air missiles and S-300 surface-to-air missiles, which, while they are surface-to-air missiles, they can also be surface-to-ground missiles. They can be modified to fill that role. And so it's very interesting to see that we're starting to see these being used, a lesser number of calibers, and they're starting to pull out Kinzels from what we can tell as well in much higher numbers. And we can see now that the alleged invincibility of these missiles is completely false. We even have videos of Ukrainian air defense, what we suspect to be Patriot air defense systems, firing off near the Kiev city area and intercepting these Kinzels and other calibers as they were flying into the city. And so here's one of the first clips we have of this attack. We can see them panning the camera around, and we can see Ukrainian surface-to-air missiles shooting up into the sky to try and intercept the missiles flying over. And I've got to tell you, this is a crazy look from last year. Last year, it was really difficult to see the Ukrainians firing off this many surface-to-air missiles in any part of the country for any reason. Their air defenses have been upgraded so heavily, especially around the Kiev city area, that we're starting to see what almost appears to be Iron Dome level amounts of missiles in the air intercepting Russian missiles and aircraft as they fly in. We can see them continuing to launch the missiles. And this appears to be somewhere in the dead center of Kiev, we're assuming. And more missiles are still being launched. And every once in a while we see a flash, like right there, of a missile intercepting a target and either hitting it and damaging it, or hitting it and taking it out completely. It is amazing.
If you didn't know any better, looking at this footage, you would think it was from Israel, the way these rockets are intercepting it.
You would think it was from Israel. That's the craziest thing about it. And yet, these aren't even Iron Domes. Iron Domes are actually a smaller missile than the missiles we're seeing right here. These are most likely IRIS-Ts, NASAMs, and Patriots that are firing off their missiles and intercepting these cruise missiles and calibers that are flying over Kiev. And those are of a much larger caliber for the large part, except for the IRIS-T. The IRIS-T is similar in scale to the Iron Dome, but amazing to see this happening over the skies of Kiev, and great to know that 6 Kinzels were shot down in that barrage. Moving on into our next clip, we also saw another film from another location of the Ukrainian air defense engaging these targets over the city. This one's crazy because this one was from the Telegraph, so we're going to have to mute the audio. But it shows us a lot better and a lot closer up part of Ukraine's surface-to-air missile battery systems firing up close. We're about to see that right here. And so we can see them panning around the sky. We can see the streaks of some of the surface-to-air missiles being fired up. And I've got to tell you, it's absolutely insane to see how well their air defense has evolved. And we can now see these surface-to-air missile batteries out in the distance, firing off their missiles from the ground. And it's crazy. It is truly like the Ukrainians have gotten an Israeli Iron Dome inside of Kiev at this point, with the amount of missile air defenses they have. And also, what's insane is the rate of fire that they're able to give with these surface-to-air missile batteries. I'm assuming that that's maybe one battery that we're watching in the distance operating, and they're firing off missiles left, right, and center, just about everywhere you could imagine to intercept anything that flies.
Right now, all the Western countries are crying their eyes out. That's money flying through the air.
Oh, man, and those missiles are not cheap. I believe the Patriots are close to $1 million a pop, so they're launching like 2 BMPs into the sky apiece with each Patriot missile. I'd have to check those numbers to make sure I'm correct on that, but But still,
Although it's worth it though, if it's saving lives, it's definitely worth it.
oh, it's certainly worth it, because out of this attack, amazingly enough, although this used probably, at least on paper, from what the Russian propaganda would lead us to believe, some of the most advanced missiles in Russia's arsenal were used during this attack. Out of the entire thing, only 3 people were injured. No one was killed in this attack. And that is the difference that Patriot surface-to-air missile defense systems, amongst the other ones being used, makes in terms of saving lives. It is able to save dozens of lives in Kiev from every single time these missile attacks occur. And I have to say, it's great to see that the Ukrainians have gotten incredibly advanced air defense systems inside of Kiev to where they don't even see a single citizen being killed by another merciless Russian attack. And so moving on into something a little bit more light, considering that we're already in some good news, the air raid sirens went off during the daylight in Brovary today. I don't really know what it was for specifically, but we did see that a little dog in the street decided to try and match the sound of the air raid siren by howling with it, and I thought it was really cute. So here's the clip. Let me turn it up and get it to the start, and here we go.
Even the dog's doing his part.
Man, even the dog does his part in support of Ukraine. Dude, the dog sits there and has a little Ukrainian badge on it, on his tuft, and when it walks by Zelensky goes, Slava Ukraini, and then you hear the dog go, Slava Ukraini, and then it just keeps on going. I like that little dog. That was a funny video, too, and kind of a, I guess you could say, a little bit of a highlight or a funny bit out of this whole entire thing is that the Ukrainians were able to save everyone's life in Kiev. Nobody got killed in this previous attack, and then even the dog joined in on alarming people that the missiles were coming in. Well, that we're now going to be moving on from Kiev and on into our location unknowns. And we had a couple of interesting ones from yesterday, actually, starting off with a grandmother that didn't realize that her grandson, who was a soldier in the Ukrainian army, had returned home. We're, of course, going to have to mute the audio because it's copyrighted, but we can see that the grandmother had laid out a feast out here, and it is one hell of a feast. We don't even see these kinds of feasts on the front line. And he returned, and here's his grandmother right here. And he's like, I'm home. And she's like, oh, a nice bouquet. And then the mom's like, that's your grandson. And she's like, oh my God, it's you. I guess he didn't have a beard before he left for the war. But it's great to see that they were reunited, and they already have the feast laid out for him in its entirety right there. And so with that, pretty funny video. Great to see that they were reunited. The grandmother was completely oblivious for like the first 10 seconds. And with that, we're going to be moving on into our next clip, where we also saw a couple of Bradleys moving around on a training ground. Bradleys are becoming a far more common sight as this war continues to go on. And here we can see inside of one of the Bradleys, them watching the lead vehicle in the infrared camera. And so here's the clip. There's music there. I could hardly hear it. I was sitting there like straining to hear the music, but we can see them driving through the training field. Incredibly neat to see, especially the inside of a Bradley, and great to know that the Ukrainians will be able to rely on these in mass incredibly soon. We already suppose and have seen proof that there may be a few Bradleys that have gotten near the front lines or are in use near the front lines, although that's been a little bit sketchy at times. We haven't really been able to tell for sure whether it's a Bradley or a really nice looking YPR 765, but it is great to know that the Ukrainians have a large number of these Bradleys, and hopefully we'll see a massive amount of them on the field here soon. They'll definitely be helping the Ukrainians to push the Russians back. We're now going to be moving on to our next clip, where we saw that a Ukrainian tanker group, or more so a Ukrainian tank, got that dog with them. Not got that dog on them or in them. They got that dog with them. And so, you know, I just realized that one of those phrases right there was wrong. But anyways, here's the clip. And look, it's a little husky. Isn't that cute? You see the tanker scooting on along the field. Oh, you see the husky enjoying the ride, getting some nice air. And there's the husky from the front view. And with that, that's the end of the clip, but it is great to see a little husky up there on the turret of this tank, along with its tanker crew. Really neat to see. And with that, we're now going to be moving on to today's Location Unknown videos, which are also Very few, but very interesting as well. Starting over our first clip of a Ukrainian Mi-24 skirting right over the tree line. This may have been one of the lowest flying Mi-24s I believe we've seen recently, firing off its rockets and then turning away. And so here's the clip. When you see the Mi-24 flying right over, maybe about 20 feet above them, firing off its rockets, and now they're both popping their flares and getting on out of there. With that, that's the end of that clip, but once again, really great to see the Ukrainian Mi-24s still out there and still conducting infantry fire support with their unguided rockets. We're now going to be moving on to our next clip where we also saw the Ukrainian SSU, or the Security Service of Ukraine, using their drones to attack Russian forces. And so, here's the clip. Also, real quick, I want to make sure that we're not lagging, because YouTube says we're lagging bad, and according to...
We were lagging for 2 seconds twice a moment ago.
Interesting, interesting. Once again, the bots are at it. We're going to, you know, if they keep it up, Matthew, we're going to have to pull up the whoa jack. Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Yep.
whoa, Jack, whoa! With that, here's the clip. Also, I got to mute it because the SBU also loves their music. And we can see them flying the drone right into the back of a tank. And right into the engine bay, right where it counts. We can now see them taking one down right into the turret. A third one's going to be coming down right onto the rear area of the turret. We now see the next one coming in onto the engine bay. We can see this one hitting a BMP on the front engine bay. We now see this one chasing down a BTR and slamming right behind the turret. We now see this one running into a supply truck right into the canvas cover, right behind the driver's compartment, most likely taking that one out. This one got a couple of soldiers. We now see this one going to the top of a slag heap where the Russians have set up a position. And they hit that one as well. We can now see them running into the back of another BMP and another one. And the back of a racing Toyota, I suppose. We can now see this one also hitting an armored vehicle as well. And that's the end of the clip. But we can see that the SSU, or the Security Service of Ukraine, has been doing a pretty good job of the whole security side of things. And I gotta say, they're doing pretty good. Not bad.
You know what's going to be popular in Ukraine after this war is over is drone sports, because they'll have so many qualified drone pilots at the end of this. It's going to be like football for Ukraine.
Dude, you know it, man. Like if anyone thought they had seen some cool drone stunts up till this war, wait until this war is over. I bet you the Ukrainians are going to be dominating like the extreme drone sports category. It's going to be insane.
Yes.
But with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip and on into our last location unknown clip. And of course, you all know what this one is. This one comes like clockwork every single time we run this news. It is the Russian casualty report. So let's see what has happened to him over the past 24 hours.
Oh, we got 3 today.
3 of them! Hey! And almost 200,000 Russian soldiers have bit the dust over this war. It's been 447 days, and they are only 20 soldiers away. In fact, they've certainly crossed that number while we're running live on stream, but they are only 20 soldiers away from losing 200,000 guys. And that tells you how bad the war has been going for them. Also, let's see if we have any Bobcats. Hey, we do! We got one from Mordsdorn. We got one from, let me make sure, Nico Tedders, I believe. Let's see, Sean White, throwing in another flaming Bobcat. And MM Moore, he's throwing in some Bobcats too. Everyone is here for those 3 Bobcats. And it's great to see that 3 special equipment vehicles were destroyed and ended up nothing more than a charred pile of rust today. We also saw that the losses in every other category were either on par or a little bit above average. We saw that 12 armored personnel carriers were destroyed over the past 24 hours. That is, once again, right on the war's average. We also saw that 14 supply trucks ended up getting it within the past 24 hours as well. Pretty nice to see, because that is, once again, right within the war's average. Around 12 to 15 supply trucks being destroyed per day is a pretty consistent number. And it's about half of the size of a convoy of supply trucks that would be needed to supply a battalion tactical group with all of the ammunition and fuel to supply them from completely empty. So great to see that they've lost that many supply trucks today. We also saw that they lost 3 main battle tanks. This number is just a little bit below average, with around 5 main battle tanks being lost over the course of the war every single day on average. So not the highest number we've seen, but still, it is around $10 million, $11 million worth of tank losses, and who in the world can, I guess you could say, scoff at that? It's a pretty decent number in monetary losses in the armor. We also saw that they lost 13 artillery pieces, an entire 3 artillery batteries plus 1 artillery piece in losses over the past 24 hours. On top of that, they also lost 12 drones, and they didn't lose any MLRSs or any other equipment of any category. But the frontline losses are showing that, once again, the Russian army is not having a good time in the current fight. The infantry losses are a little bit above the war's average around 500 or so that is good. And we can see that in vehicular losses today, they lost a pretty decent amount, especially in the APC, supply truck, and artillery category, and those have been a large part of how the Russians have been able to survive. Tanks are becoming less and less important as the war has continued on, at least for Russian forces, as they become increasingly non-existent, or the variants that the Russians are using are obsolete. And so we haven't seen tanks on the front lines like we did at the beginning of the war. So they're relying on these APCs and the artillery to back up the infantry groups that they have near the front lines. And considering that we're seeing these consistently being pretty much destroyed, it is a pretty decent assumption to say that these infantry numbers will once again begin to climb after this sacrifice of Russian armor and Russian artillery that they had once again today. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that casualty report and on into our frontline news, and we have a pretty interesting spread today. It was everywhere, all the way from the northeast, all the way down to the south, all the way in the Kherson area, and also in Bakhmut, where we heard that the Wagner unit is pretty much going to openly revolt against the Russian government, at least here soon, from what the soldiers in the unit are saying. But before we get into that, because that's honestly shocking and pretty crazy to see, we have to cover the polls. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so for our very first poll, the question is, NATO says Ukraine can begin the process of joining NATO when there's Ukrainian victory, and what are your thoughts? 59% said that's reasonable and fair, 16% said I'm mixed on it, 18% said that's not acceptable and it's too late, and 7% said unsure. And I'm actually going to fall within the 18%. I think that's a little too late to begin the process. I think NATO could probably go ahead and give Ukraine a roadmap to joining. It seems at this point that they're a little hesitant to do that. I'm not sure exactly what the primary reason is. It could be that maybe they're concerned about the corruption issues in Ukraine, or perhaps they simply don't want to agitate the situation in the war anymore, but I'm not really sure. But they should go ahead and give a roadmap, in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I say that they should send the F-16s to Ukraine. I will say this, however, sending brand new ones would be a little odd, especially considering that they would be the most updated variants. I believe that we should send something most likely like an F-16C Block 50 or something similar, something around that kind of age category. I think that would probably be the best, most I guess you could say cost efficient and also the most available option to send the Ukrainians. So I say that we should send them a roadmap or give an idea of when they will get these F-16s and these aircraft. But in my honest opinion, I don't think they should have the most modern ones, not just for a national security issue, but also for a cost reason. We could send them a lot more older F-16s at a far cheaper price than the new ones, which may also be shot down at the same rate if any of them are shot down at all. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next poll says, Lukashenko was seen in public yesterday amidst health issues and appeared in bad shape. And what are your thoughts? 54% said he is likely going to die, 31% said unsure, and 15% said it was minor and he will live. And I'm going to fall in the unsure category. At this point, based on what I've seen, it's hard to tell exactly what is wrong with him. I've seen some of our MDs in the chat give their opinion on it, and I'm still unsure, I have to admit. It looks like maybe he might have had some kind of flu or illness, would be my layman's guess. But, you know, at his age, who knows what could be going on. But Enforcer, what say you?
Now, real quick, Matthew, before we address this poll, what was the prompt for the last poll? Because I was looking at the live chat, and it appears that I may have misheard or answered the wrong poll.
Yes, you did. I was going to move on and not mention it. But anyways, the first one said, NATO says that Ukraine can begin the process of joining the alliance when there is Ukrainian victory. And what are your thoughts?
Well, how the hell did I get F-16s out of that at all? What in the world was I thinking right then? Okay, to answer that one, sorry about that, y'all. I was looking at something else on my end over here, trying to check something out, so I misheard the poll.
I thought maybe you were going to like segue into the poll question, so I wasn't going to interrupt, but you were too far into it for me to correct it.
Honestly, that's why I kind of have to either answer the polls first or have them reread, because I'm like paying attention over here too, so I'm trying to like hop in and answer something that I don't really remember what the prompt even was. But to answer that, I would say that I think they should be allowed to join after the war, not during the war, because if we allow them to join during the war, they can invoke Article 4 and Article 5 immediately, and that pretty much thwarts the entire idea of us supporting them, because then we're already going to be directly involved in the war. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I hope that does address that poll fairly well, because the first answer I gave was about F-16s. I think we have a poll about that tonight, don't we, Matthew?
Yes, it's coming later.
Okay, so apparently I misread into it. It went way ahead. But anyways, with that, let's get on into the other poll, which is about Lukashenko's health. And I would have to agree with the most of y'all. He is going to die, but the question is when. I don't think it's going to be immediately. I don't think he's going to be dying within weeks or anything. But I have a feeling that this is probably the downward spiral over the next year or two that he'll be having until he finally croaks and dies. I don't know what's going to happen to Belarus, though, once he dies, because, you see, he has been the leader of Belarus pretty much ever since the beginning of it. Kind of like Putin was around 1999 to 2000, he became the leader of Russia. A similar thing happened in Belarus, where Lukashenko pretty much became the ruler of Belarus from its inception, from its liberation from the Soviet Union in 1991, and has been there ever since. So who's to say what really happens to Belarus once he dies? But I have a feeling he will be dying soon, probably within a year or two. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our third poll says Ukraine claims to have shot down 6 Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, likely with the Patriot, and what are your thoughts? 45% said Ukraine's air defense is absolutely unmatched. 39% said great, but I would prefer video proof. 6% said unsure, and 9% said, that seems questionable. And I'm going to fall within the 39%. I think that's great. If it did occur, that is absolutely phenomenal that they were able to get 6 of them in a row. But I do know that there is a video out there that shows some missiles flying around, but I prefer some clearer video proof, to be just completely honest, because with the claims that bold, it would be good to see it for yourself. But I'm not saying I doubt the Ukrainians. It probably did happen, but it would be good to have proof. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I believe that they probably were able to shoot down 6 Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, considering that seems to be something that the entire Ukrainian government is running with, and it has become an official statement even by Alexei Reznikov. But I would like to see some picture evidence showing the remains of these hypersonic missiles, the Kinzhals, once they fall into the ground. Because, of course, once they're shot down, they fall to the ground as debris. And so I'm sure they'll be able to find some of this debris and physically show that they were Kinzhal hypersonic missiles that were shot down, and hopefully get us an accurate number count that is around 6. They might not be able to find the debris of all of them. They may only be able to find 4 or 5. I guess you could say debris fields of these Kinzhals. Hopefully they can find all 6 of them. But if they're able to find a large number, like even 4 of them at all, I would still believe the overall number of 6 Kinzhals being shot down, because it seems to me that if the Kinzhal was shot down about 4 days ago, and they did show the physical proof that that missile had been shot down, I have no doubt about it that they were able to once again shoot down even more missiles, considering that the Patriot air defense systems are deployed around Kiev, and they appear to be the only system at the moment that has been proven to be able to shoot down the Kinzhal hypersonics with relative ease. So with that, I hope I addressed that poll fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and that was our last poll, so of course, y'all know what time it is. It's time to move into our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have a very generous $110 Super Chat from none other than Mark, Colonel of the LSA. And thank you very much, Mark, for the continued support. He says, I'm starting to run out of things to say, but Slava Ukraine. And to Poodler, Abacadadra, Alakazam, Jackass just disappeared.
And thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Mark, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I thank you so much for the huge support. You may be running out of things to say. Everyone runs out of things to say. Honestly, sometimes I'm surprised how much stuff we can come up with over every single night of news. It kind of blows me away. And it's a little bit of a miraculous miracle that this stream could run about 3 hours every single night, and we never run out of things to say. Even if I'm not even addressing the right poll, we never run out of things to say. But still, I thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, Mark, and helping this channel to keep on rolling, because it's folks like you who support this channel that make it possible. We run everything ad-free and sponsor-free, and if it wasn't for folks like you, Mark, well, it would have never been possible for us to keep this channel running, and it wouldn't be possible for us to keep this channel running on into the future. And so with that, Thank you so much once again. I'd also agree with the little abracadabra thing right there. I'd back that up 100%. Maybe we can find a magician out there who can do it. Let me think, Matthew. What is a magician that could probably do that that's around in the modern day? I think Penn and Teller could do it.
Man, I think Zelensky's about to pull a trick on him in a minute.
Dude, he's about to go, silly putting tricks on for kids. Slam a drone right into the window of the Kremlin. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, Mark. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you for being a old guard of the Lee Spring Army, and of course, helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And guess what? The next one is also from Mark, Colonel of the LSA, who puts in a $60 super chat this time. And thank you, Mark, for the second super chat of the night. He says, in honor of PsyOps. And he's paying his respects to PsyOps, like we all must do.
That makes it sound like PsyOps is dead. He's here tonight. But truly, in honor of PsyOps, PsyOps is an amazing part of this Lee Spring Army. He's been with us for an incredibly long time. He's an old guard on this channel. And PsyOps is an incredibly funny guy. He's also asked me if he could brew up something really neat, and we'll be seeing that unfold probably a little bit later in a few days, maybe a few weeks. But PsyOps is a really cool part of the Lee Spring Army, and we're happy to have him around. He's a funny guy in the live chat. He's a funny guy whenever he throws into super chat for us to answer. Usually we have to take his super chats and not read them because they're so spicy and just give a question to the live chat. But he is amazing nonetheless, and PsyOps is a great person. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the mass amount of support, Mark, and also a huge shout out to PsyOps over there, because PsyOps is a pretty cool fella. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again, Mark, for the second super chat of the night, and once again helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we'll be getting right back into the news.
All right, and guess what? The third one also goes to Mark, Colonel of the LSA. His third super chat is a $27 donation, and once again, thank you very much, Mark. He says, do you think the USA is getting detailed logging data on the Patriots in case they could verify all claims?
I would say yes. I think they are getting data on the Patriots. Most likely, whenever we transfer our equipment over to Ukraine, there is an agreement with the Ukrainians that they will provide to us all kinds of data and intel that they can gather on our weapon systems in use. And so I have a feeling that I probably have gotten every single bit of information of every single Patriot missile that has ever been fired or used during this war, and what it has been able to do, what it maybe has not been able to do. And so we're starting to get a far better picture beyond what we saw in the Gulf War and also the Iraq War of what these Patriot missile defense systems can really do against the modern day conventional, well, modern day quote unquote. I mean, it's the army of today for Russia, but for everyone else, it's the army of yesteryear. But at least we're getting to see what these Patriot surface-to-air missile systems can really do against Russian weaponry. So I'm sure that we're getting all of that data back, and that's also why the Department of Defense did come out and verify that it was a Patriot missile defense system that shot down the original Kinzhal that was kind of contended for a while. No one really knew whether that Kinzhal had been shot down or not. There was a little bit of like a back and forth about that, where people were like, nah, it didn't. Yes, it did. And then finally, the official statement came out that they did. I guess after a really deep investigation into if there was Kinzhal debris on the ground somewhere, and then the Department of Defense here in America also backed up that statement and did confirm that a Kinzhal had been shot down by a Patriot. So I would say that we're probably getting very high levels of detail on everything we've sent. And I don't think that's just for the Patriot. It's probably for the HIMARS as well, probably with the M777, and especially with the HIMARS, because if the information we're hearing is correct and the Russians are using some kind of electronic warfare systems to tamper with the way that the HIMARS is able to fire its missiles, we're probably incredibly interested in how that works and how we can develop our HIMARS to be more resistant against those kinds of attacks or those kinds of tactics that may make the HIMARS far less accurate than it really would be. And so with that, hope that does answer that question fairly well once again. And thank you so much once again for the third support of the night, Mark, and helping this channel to once again keep on rolling, because it is folks like you that make this channel possible. And if it wasn't for you, folks like you, Mark, and everyone else who supports this channel, it wouldn't be possible for us to keep this thing rolling. You helping it possible for us to do everything. The short summaries, the Twitter, the streams, through y'all support, because we run everything ad-free. We have no sponsors. If it wasn't for folks like you, Mark, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling. And we're greatly appreciative to every single one of y'all, because if it wasn't for y'all, we would have never been able to do this as a job, and we wouldn't be able to keep doing this as a job. And so with that, We're now moving on from this question segment and on into the Northeast, where we've seen that over the past, and let me make sure to go up here, over the past 48 hours, and so here's the 15th, here's the 14th, over these past 48 hours, nothing has happened up there. I'm sure many people are shocked. I was incredibly shocked when I saw that. And now it's time for us to get into the few videos we have from this area. Starting off near Svatove, where we saw that an electronic warfare system of the Russians, set on top of a grain silo, was destroyed by Ukrainian artillery today. And so here's the clip. We see the electronic warfare boom right up here at the tallest part of the building. And we're about to see the artillery come raining down on this thing. And we can see the first shot hit right near the tower, right where it needs to. And we can see it in slow-mo once again, and we can see parts of the electronic relay flying off into the sky, letting us know that that thing is certainly out of action. And so with that, that's the end of that clip, but it is great to see that the Ukrainians were able to destroy one of those pesky electronic warfare systems, and hopefully that'll help their artillery to be a little bit more accurate in the area, at least the HIMARS, because it appears that the artillery system that hit this tower, whatever it may be, was incredibly accurate, because within the first shot, it hit the relay immediately. With that, we're going to be moving on into our next bit of news, a little bit further down the line, and once again near Krasnoyarsk, which is a usually active part of this front line, we saw that the Ukrainian drone forces were giving some small gifts to the Russians. Not really the kind of gifts that you're happy for on Christmas Day. These are the ones that usually you're very unhappy for. Honestly, I would say that this would usually make people explosively angry. Here's the clip. Of course, we can hear Chad music playing, which we have to mute. But we can see them putting the videos in reverse of them dropping the bomblets on everything. And we can see while they're in reverse, they are very accurate bomblet drops. And we can now see them putting them all in normal time and speed. And we can see that they're getting just about everything out there. Dude, I like the text font just popping up on screen.
Yeah. What did it even say? Could you tell?
Let's see. This one said drony. So I think it just says drone. I think that's just it. Ooh, that was a pretty accurate one. These are also fairly accurate as well. Oh, dang, man. A lot of accurate ones. And it appears to be a compilation of what this unit in this area has been able to do over months of time. And they're just putting out the video clips now, and also some very recent ones. But very nice to see that in the area of Krasnoyarsk, the drone forces are doing a really good job at making sure to keep the Russians' heads down, and at least make sure that a couple of them get out of the war just a little early. Maybe even go underground just a little bit early. And so with that, we're now going to be moving even further down the line and into the area just outside of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk near Belorivka and Verkhnukamianka, where we saw near Shipalivka, a drone took out an open-air ammo depot. Everyone loves an open-air ammo depot, and I've got to be honest with you, I also like open-air ammo depots. I like the way they explode. And so let's watch the clip. We can see the drone flying down into the open-air depot and hitting it, and we can now see the small thermonuclear explosion out in the field. Actually, when you look at the size of that tree line, that was actually a massive explosion. The Russians will no longer...
big.
It was big, bleed. And I don't think they'll be getting any more ammo out of that thing anytime soon. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip and on into our next one, which was from yesterday, where we saw that more prisoners have been added to the Ukrainian exchange fund, at least in this area. And so, here's the clip. Oh, we got to mute the Chad music, but we see that they have them tied on the ground. They have about 3 of them that we can see on film right here. And great to see, they got another 3 of them. And every little bit counts. 3 here, 6 there, 9 in another place. Huh, do you hear that, Matthew? 6 and 9? Nice. But it is amazing. It is amazing to see that they're constantly catching Russian prisoners. Because the more prisoners they have means the more Ukrainians that they can exchange these Russians for. And that means the less Ukrainian soldiers that have to endure torture in Russian prisoner of war camps, and they can return home back to a normal life. We're now going to be moving on from this little bit of news and the small amount of activity happening near Shipalivka and Belorivka, and we're now going to be moving down the lines, and not into Bakhmut yet. We're going to be moving behind the lines by about 10 to 15 miles to the town of Popasna, where we saw a Russian Buk system was destroyed by an incredibly accurate HIMARS strike. We can see the picture of the Buk system down there, and just to show you what a Buk looks like from the side, And let me see if I can get you all a Buke SAM system. This is what a Buke looks like from the side. I gotta say, it's ugly enough to make me puke. But it is still one of Russia's more common surface-to-air missile defense systems, and was also heavily exported to many Warsaw Pact countries, and so it's a surface-to-air missile system that everyone in Eastern Europe will be fairly familiar with, at least within the armed forces circles. We did see that from this picture and on into the next one, it apparently didn't survive. The HIMARS missile came down right on top of it, blowing up, detonating the missiles that are just open to the wide air, and then causing the rest of the vehicle to burn out. I gotta say, once again, great to see. I don't think Bukes are that expensive. Let's pull up Buke. Buke. Oh, come on. My fingers are slipping. Buke SAM missile. Well, nah. SAM system cost. We want to find the cost of the whole system. Let's see. How much was a Buke SAM missile? A missile worth $200 million. I kind of doubt that a Buke's missile would be worth $200 million. So let's see if we can find any information on Wikipedia about how much these things may cost. So let's see here. Let's scroll on down. Let's scroll on down. Let's see, missile. We're looking for the system. Not really seeing a lot of information about how much these things cost. And that always seems to be one of the most difficult pieces of information to find anywhere on the internet, as how much do these missile systems cost? Almost no one really ever wants to get into that, and that's one of the most important parts of war, is financing a war. And if these things are incredibly expensive, I'd assume they're probably around $8 million a piece. And that's just a wide estimate cost of the system. I don't really know.
That tells you that price varies depending on who's asking.
Let's see. It may be so. Let's see. MiG scat. I don't think I want a MiG scat. I think I don't want scat at all, to be honest with you. That is just a weird thing to say. Anyways, it's about $8 million is what I take a guess at. So around $8 million of a surface-to-air missile defense system destroyed right here in the area of Popasna. With that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip, and now we're going to be moving on into the beautiful city of Bakhmut, where the battle continues on, and the Russians continue to get plastered. Over the past 48 hours, we did see that Ukrainian forces were able to make a decent bit of ground here in the northeastern area, and it does appear that they're making a concerted push in this area, but over the past 48 hours, we have not seen Ukrainian forces that are fighting the Russian 72nd Brigade continuing to make any advances, at least according to Deep State UA. It may be that Ukrainian forces have stopped the push in this area, and it was just to give the Highway of Life a little bit more breathing room. We're not entirely sure, but it is nice to see that the Ukrainians are still continuing the push. They keep on going, and not only that, they're going well enough that they're causing the Wagner to straight up mutiny, or at least declare that they're going to be revolting against the Russian government. Now, I sadly was not able to find this clip where it originally was today, and so I actually had to go find the Enforcer Short War summary from today. Y'all can find those on the channel. They come up here every single day, but let me skip forward to the relevant part where they start threatening the Russian government. And so here's the clip. In this next clip, we can see soldiers from the Wagner unit threatening physical violence against the Russian government.
Мы хотим сказать депутату Соболеву, если ты, пидор, будешь совать свой нос, и страна из-за таких пидоров, как ты, проиграет войну, нам придется прийти на Красную площадь. И чтобы защитить свой народ, россиян, отъебать тебя и таких, как ты, в жопу. Поэтому, блядь, приезжай к нам сюда, пидор престарелый.
In this clip, so pretty interesting to see. And of course, I couldn't read the subtitles. I know many people are wondering, why didn't I read the subtitles on that one? The subtitles on that one were a little too charged for me to really read, because about half of what I would be trying to say would be censored, or I would censor it. But you can see that this guy is largely unhappy with the Russian government. The guy he's threatening is way on up there in the military defense circle. He's nearly directly under Shoigu. And the fact that he's threatening this guy pretty much shows that the Wagner is not scared at all to go right up against the Russian government and threaten to kill some of the top officials, or I would say far worse, violate them in another sense.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. This is speaking of violating. This is nothing new to the Wagner, or I guess you could say the Chechen Kadyrovites. We have not been able to show these clips on stream, but Matthew and me have seen many instances of the Wagner and the Chechen Kadyrovites using grape, you know, since we have to get around the YouTube censors that, using grape as a form of punishment against their own soldiers for sometimes even the most minor of infractions. And it's very interesting here that this guy is threatening to use that as a punishment, because honestly, that's no punishment. I think is normal. That's kind of weird. But anyways, with that, fairly interesting to see. Once again, it seems as though everybody in the Wagner unit is getting overtaken with window syndrome. They're wanting to go out that window, Matthew. They're just trying to find a way to speed this up. But with that, we're going to be moving on behind the lines to Pirorodny, where we saw that a Russian ammo depot went up in flames in this area today. And it was, of course, great to see. Here's the clip. We can see the open-air ammo depot right there where my mouse cursor is circling. We can see the drone hovering down a little bit closer to it. And we now see them dropping the bomblet, and we're about to see the small explosion.
Oh, small explosion.
Just a Hiroshima-sized explosion on the side of this dirt road. When you see them dropping a second bomblet, it appears that it didn't really get to do much. I think all of the ammo blew up in the first bomblet. And we now see them flying through the debris cloud. I gotta say, that was not bad at all. That was certainly not a small explosion. I would say that was close to a Moab-sized explosion, if we've ever seen one. It was so strong that it actually flicked the drone camera forward a little bit right here. Like, you can see that physically. Watch that, man. You look at this. It flings it forward just by a little. It looks like the gimbal even got overpowered by the shockwave.
It's impressive the drone didn't fall out of the sky.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And what was even crazier is that they flew it right through the debris field right afterwards. Pretty wild. But with that, great to see that the drone was able to knock out another open-air Russian ammo depot. And once again, the Russians will be suffering, at least in this part of the front line, for more ammunition and more arms to keep their forces running. We're now going to be moving on into our next clip, once again, kind of behind the lines, where we saw that the 225th was able to flatten a couple of Russians in this area today. We can see them raining down artillery in this area. Trees devoid of vegetation, although it's the summer due to the amount of barrages that have happened here. And we can see that a couple of Russians apparently won't be going back home. We can now see a Ukrainian tank racing forward to take care of the rest of the Russians, which are running into their trench works like small ants. And we now see some soldiers pop out of the tree line and start following the Ukrainian tank. They are Ukrainian soldiers that are advancing towards this Russian trench work and will be helping to clear it on out. We now see the Russians once again hurrying into defensive positions, although the artillery is still raining down on them with pinpoint accuracy and inflicting a decent amount of losses before the tanks, supported by an infantry column, arrive. We now see the Ukrainians advancing forward past a burned out and partially destroyed tank right there, and they're now assaulting the Russian positions, moving right up onto them, and of course wiping them on out. We can see Russian forces continuing to retreat as the Ukrainians take on prisoners right here. With that, that's the end of that clip, but once again, we can see that the Ukrainians are still making ground, still wiping out Russian forces, and even overrunning them so quickly as to force them to become prisoners. And we can see that in the Bakhmut area, at least on the flanks, the situation is still not improving for the Russians, and it's becoming even better as each day passes for the Ukrainian army. We're now going to be moving into the city of Bakhmut, where we saw on video footage what the city looked like today. Now, I gotta say, the track on this video was actually pretty good. Sadly, we can't play it. Maybe I can play a few seconds of it right here, but we can't play the whole thing. I mean, at least this time it wasn't just like Chad music. It was pretty cool. But we can see the city of Bakhmut here, once again, of course, completely destroyed. I would say that Bakhmut has been destroyed more thoroughly than Mariupol was, even at the later end of the battle. And we can see the smoke still rising from the active battlefields on the far western side of the city as the Ukrainians and Russians go head-to-head and toe-to-toe from building to building in that area, with the Ukrainians continuing to hold their ground and making sure that the Russians do not advance any farther. And it is crazy to see from the air. And think about it, this is really rare to see a city that is an active battlefield from the air like this on film. Probably it has never been seen like this before in any war up until today. And yet now, in this war, we get to see what a battle looks like from the sky. And all you see is just smoke rising from where the active firefights are and where shelling has happened, and that's about it. And beyond that, just the backscape of a ruined city. But with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and on into our next one, where we also saw a Ukrainian soldier taking a little bit of a break in the middle of the fighting and playing a piano. And he wasn't playing that bad, really. I mean, here's shelling going on outside. It's the guy who plays around on the piano. We can see them showing the destroyed building that they're in right now. And with that, that's the end of that clip. Kind of a little sad and desolate, but once again, it's a good sign to see that the Ukrainian army is still inside of the buildings at Bakhmut, because they continue to hold that line as the Ukrainians on the flanks sweep forward and make sure to try and push the Russians out by a threatening of an encirclement. We're now going to be moving on from those clips inside of the city and now further south and on into the area of Opitny and Klishkivka, where we saw in that direction the 127th was able to get a couple of Russians. Also, that is a duplicate. Sorry about that. That was one we actually showed the north. So we're going to be getting rid of that one because that one's already up there. And we're now going to be moving on down to our last one where we saw some more Russian prisoners being taken in the area. And also, let me turn this one down so that we can make sure to read the subtitles. Tell me who you are. Tell me your name. What is your name? Vyacheslav Sergeyevich. What? What is your name? Alexander Nikolaevich. Rank? Junior Sergeant. We were forced to come here. Where did you serve? The questioning continues as they try and make sure that he's stripped of weaponry so that way they can take him back to process him. But we can see here, and from how fast and quickly everyone's talking, it appears that they may have just rounded out a firefight, or they are still in the middle of a firefight and the action has stopped for a little bit because the Ukrainians are in cover and the other Russians can't see them. But by the rapidity at which everyone's talking, this guy is shocked that he's being taken as a prisoner, and the Ukrainians are freaked out because either there's still a firefight going, or they just got out of one, and he's one of the few people that are still around to be taken prisoner. But very interesting to see, and great to know that once again they're taking prisoners, continuing to assault Russian trenches, and take them from the Russians, showing that ground is still being taken even as of today. We're now going to be...
Isn't it kind of weird whenever they're in the midst of a firefight, the Ukrainians finally come up and take the trench, they take the Russians prisoner, and all of a sudden the first thing out their mouth, instead of, you know, anything else, is, oh, we were forced to come here, it's not our fault, after they were literally shooting at the Ukrainians.
It is pretty weird, but it's not actually that weird historically. A lot of American soldiers that were involved in the First World War always talked about their disdain for German machine gunners, because German machine gunners would do a very similar thing to what you just saw that guy do right there. They would mow down Americans by the dozens in no man's land, and once the Ukrainians made it up to that MG nest, the German machine gun operators would throw up their hands, and they would say in the most broken English they could, or they would just say in German, "Don't shoot, I surrender, I give up." And they would just give up on the spot. They wouldn't continue to fight or anything like that. They would surrender as soon as they saw they couldn't mow down a few more Americans in the field without getting shot themselves. And it enraged Americans. Actually, some of them actually admitted to just shooting them on the spot anyways, although they had surrendered. And while that is a war crime, of course, you know, the context is still there. But it's fairly interesting to see that also happening in the modern day. It kind of shows that no matter what, human behavior doesn't change in that kind of situation. Everyone's always trying to find a quick way out or a quick excuse to say why they really shouldn't be there and why they didn't really mean to kill your friends, because I was just following orders, so I was just doing what I was told. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on into our next clip inside of Bakhmut, a little bit further behind the lines, where we saw one of those T-72 EAs that had been upgraded in the Czech Republic. And many of y'all may have remembered seeing these videos from a while ago of a Czech workshop working on upgrading T-72s that were within the Czech army for a time and getting them ready for Ukrainian service. We saw the first of its kind in the area around Bakhmut and being used to drag another vehicle off the field. And so here's the clip. We can see the T-72 EA right there, and we can see it dragging a YPR 765 off the field, most likely due to engine trouble. And we can see the YPR 765 right there, and the tank continuing to carry it on out of the field, most likely to a repair station. And with that, that's the end of the clip, and it is really neat to see that those Czech T-72 EAs are finally showing up the front lines. It's been a long time since we saw that video, maybe 4 or 5 months since the last time we saw these T-72 EAs, and they were in a workshop in the Czech Republic being outfitted for Ukrainian service, and we're finally seeing them appear on the front lines around Bakhmut. Great to know, because while they're not the most modern Western tanks out there, like the Leopard 2, the Abrams, or the Challenger 2s, it is still more modern armor than the Russians have at this point, and that is really all that matters, is being better off on the field than the Russians are, even if it means that you're still using largely 1990s or early 2000s tech at the best. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news, and on into our last bit from the Bakhmut battlefield, where we saw a Russian tank burning after a Ukrainian drone was able to get it. Also, I got to mute the music because it's very dramatic and probably copyright. But when you see the Russian tank down there, it appears that a fire is coming out of the gunner's hatch, the only hatch that was open on the tank. Maybe even showing that the crew wasn't able to bail and the crew's still inside there. We don't really know that for certain, but considering that the hatches are closed, it may be a good indicator. Well, that's the end of that clip, and we can also see it's a raw ammo fire at this point because the smoke is pure white. But very nice to see that another $3.5 million tank was wiped out on film. And once again, the Russians will be going back to their commissars, or the eastern, I guess you could say, tank graveyards in Russia, and going, we have to find a new T-55 bullet. But we've run out. Get the T-34s. Let's grab them. But with that, we're going to be moving on from the Bakhmut area, of course, an incredibly active part of the front, and on down into Donetsk. And of course, to make sure that we cover the Donetsk front over the past 24 hours, we have seen that no advances whatsoever have been made by the Russians in this area. The Ukrainians have conducted a successful offensive, or the Russians have halted their activity in this area completely, and the front lines have not moved whatsoever. However, around Avdiivka, we did see the Russians once again playing foul and trying to move the front lines through largely illegal means by dropping white phosphorus directly onto the city of Avdiivka, and that was seen on film here. And when you see the incendiaries raining down on an area near Avdiivka as they try and push the Ukrainians out. Of course, these incendiary attacks never proved to be successful. You've never seen a Ukrainian force completely uprooted or destroyed by incendiary munitions. But one thing that it certainly does do is that if there are any citizens in that area that are attacked and burned to death by this, it is a war crime. On top of that, using incendiary munitions to burn soldiers alive is also a war crime. We looked into this into great detail, and the complexity around using incendiary ammunition is actually pretty complex. You can kill soldiers with incendiary munitions, but they have to be killed in the blast. They cannot be killed by the continuing burning of the munition like we're seeing right here.
I thought it was okay to use the incendiaries on the forces, but not civilians.
I believe it's, from what I checked, it isn't. You have to kill them in the blast. You cannot kill them by burning them to death. We now see the area also being hit a little bit later on in the day by a grad barrage, most likely. We see the grad barrage still coming down, and it appears the smoke is still coming off the field from the incendiary barrage that had just occurred earlier. And it appears in this video, this is an attempt to uproot a Ukrainian position somewhere on the outside flank of Avdiivka, not exactly inside of the city, but somewhere right near the outskirts. And largely we could assume that this may be unsuccessful, even with the grad barrage added in. Grad barrages are largely inaccurate and really best for suppressive fire, and so it doesn't really add a lot, at least as far as getting Ukrainian forces either destroyed or moved off the field. But once again, another war crime being committed on film. We're now going to be moving on to our next clip from the area around Avdiivka, where we saw one of those Russian grads that may have been used in that video being destroyed a little bit later on. We can see it right there, and we're about to see that it doesn't exist. Here comes the first shot, a little ways off, the grad being a little bit further up, but the second shot hits it right on. He's not coming on then. Oh my god, dude, that thing blew a hole in the engine bay.
Oh man.
Dude, that's rough. Man, I wonder if insurance is going to cover that. I feel like that's not even, like, even if it was under warranty, I don't think that warranty would cover that, a giant hole in the engine bay. But anyways,
I'm sure in the policy it says acts of war or acts of God are not covered.
that's it. Dude, this got to be an act of God because the hole of this thing is massive. But with that,
What would it even cause that? Like just a shell?
I guess so. I mean, maybe like 155 millimeter shell just boring a hole straight through the engine bay. I guess it might make a hole like that. It's really wild to see that somehow it didn't just get blown up by the artillery shell falling like right into the engine bay. You would think that the front of the MLRS would be gone, but instead it's just a cartoon.
Like Kilo 19 said, it'll buff out. Like every on the block mechanic always just says, that'll buff out.
Dude, put some armor all on the dash, resell this thing for even more than you got it for. That's the way to do it, man. That's the way to do it. But with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip. And also, Matthew, I know what's the problem with this one.
Well, it doesn't have an engine.
Ain't got no gas in it.
Oh, well.
But with that, we're going to be moving on from the town of Avdiivka, and further on down the line, we didn't hear of any action in Marinka today, at least on video footage, but we did see in Novomikhailivka that a Russian tank was blown up, and it was probably one of the rarer ones that we've seen at this point, a full-on T-80 of the 79th Brigade. Oh, sorry, correction. Actually, I believe I read the title wrong. The Ukrainian tank, this T-80 here, was firing at Russian positions in the area around Novomikhailivka. Here's the clip. You see the T-80 rolling forward. And I believe this is a T-80 for a plot, from what we could tell. And we can now see it firing onto this area in the distance. And it appears that we can actually see Volodar out there. That's Volodar right there where the high-rises are. We're about to see one of their shells landing in the tree line again. Right there. And when you see this tank is just taking a good lay of the land. It's just making sure to level the place evenly. Well, that's the end of that clip. But great to see a Ukrainian T-80 at work. Also, I'm going to relabel that because that is not the correct title. That was actually Ukrainian tank at work. And there we go. So we'll save that. And we're now moving on to the next clip near Mikilske or Volodar, where we saw that the 72nd Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, there's a 72nd on both sides, a 72nd for the Russians that's in action somewhere in the southern flank of Bakhmut, and also a 72nd Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces that is in action on the front lines near Volodar, and we saw them storming Russian positions in that area today. We can now see the Ukrainians moving down the trench work. And we can see that this trench work is covered in trash, showing that it was a Russian-made one. We can see them taking a prisoner right here. And we can see a second Russian coming out. And it appears that they've conducted a sweep. We now see him coming out and also getting on the ground as well. We now see them trying to continue to process the prisoners and make sure that there are no more Russians in the trench. We now see them trying to make sure that they check the right angles to make sure that they don't get ambushed by a charging Russian coming around the corner as they continue to take on the two Russians that have surrendered. We now see them still taking on the prisoners as the Ukrainians continue to try and move forward and clear the remainder of the small trench. I gotta tell you, man, the Russians are trashy. The park rangers would hate these guys.
Oh, man.
Man, dude, imagine a park ranger seeing this crap. I mean, dude, they go mental. Well,
the park rangers would love them because they're animals.
We have to protect the wildlife, but they're throwing trash out there. You got to protect the wildlife. But anyways, with that,
no, you got to put this wildlife down. It can't be running around free.
Dude, park rangers go to Washington asking for an animal sanctuary to be made for these things. But anyways, with that, we're moving on towards the area of Oktyabrski, where we saw yesterday that an APC and a tank were destroyed by a Stugna. And I gotta say this, Matthew, it's been a long time since we've seen a Stugna in action like this. It's been a good while, maybe a month. And we can see the tank. When you see the tank out there in the Stugna. We now hear them firing. It's now traveling on its way. That may actually be the BMP. You can't really tell. It's an oddly shaped silhouette. Oh, no, that's a tank. With a coke cage. She's got a coke cage on it.
Давай, братче.
So the Stugna is still traveling. Correction, they're now firing a second one, so I'm guessing that the first one hit. We didn't really see that. It's traveling, and it hit.
Yes! Yeah! Иди сюда, кастрюля.
Dang, bro, dude, that man screamed so hard he started coughing. Listen to that.
Yes! Yeah! Иди сюда, кастрюля с мясом.
Oh my god.
Dude, that's you. Dude, that's you for real. Whenever
It's me.
Dude, it's him. He needs to recall it, man. I know what he's going through right now because we go through that sometimes. Dude, we got to hear that one more time, though. That was
This
good.
is where I go on.
Иди сюда, кастрюля.
Ricola.
Ricola. Dude, that's what they need to say when they hit another tank. Ricola.
С мясом.
And now see that is a T-62M with the cope cage on top. That explains why it blew up like a bomb when it got hit, because it has really no armor to work with, so the Stugna just goes through like it's paper. But that is pretty wild. And also, that is once again showing real proof how stretched the Russians are. This is a frontline tank now. That is a T-62M. You could see the, very faintly though, the little composite armor, like, I guess you could say cheeks that they put onto the turret. I'll try and show y'all what I'm talking about here in another picture. So a T-62M. So let me go to images. Let me find it. And so I'm talking about these little armor cheeks right here. They're actually really pronounced if you can see them from the top down. And let me see if I can find y'all a picture of that. Doesn't really seem like they want to show you a lot of pictures of a T-62M from the top down. That one might do. Nah, that's from War Thunder. We're moving on. That's a never mind. Dang, man, they do not make a lot of top-down pictures of T-62Ms, do they? It's like they're a dated tank, and no one really cares to take pictures of them or anything. Okay, so this is probably the best I'll be able to do, but you can see that the composite armor slat on the turret protrudes pretty greatly from it, and you can see the thin outline of that here. And while we don't have a lot of pixels to work with, you can see that little distinct feature of the T-62M right there. And so we can see that it didn't stand up well to a Stugna. That once again proves 1960s tanks don't do well in the 21st century. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip in the area around, and let me make sure I get the town name correct, Oktyabrysky, and we're now going to be moving further on down the line and towards the direction of Huilopol and Polohi, where we saw that an entire Gyansen SPG battery of the Russian army was targeted today by the 44th Artillery Brigade, and it appears that they didn't fare that well. And there's no audio, interestingly enough. We now see the Gyansen S's. They are laid out inside the tree line. They've dug up a firing position for each of them, and that may be showing that these Gyansens have just kind of camped out here for the longest time. Usually artillery in the modern world, at least from what we've seen by the Ukrainian army, they do not dig in positions into tree lines. They instead move around constantly and fire from open fields and then travel along paved or unpaved roads. These appear to have been here for so long, or they've decided that they'll stay here for so long, they actually dug them little spots, little cubby holes into the tree line, so that way they'd think they blend in a little bit better, but that's very poor attempt at trying to make them blend in. Anyways, the Ukrainian artillery doesn't care. They're about to start landing shells right on top of these things, and we can see them loading the artillery piece and firing it. It appears to be maybe an FH-70, and we now see the first shot coming down, and the second shot immediately afterwards. It appears that that one landed right on the Gyansen S, and we can see it on fire and burning right there. And we can now see it exploding. That was the one in the middle. We can now see that from a very far distance away from a second drone. And we now see it again. Well, you can see the other two Gyansenesses have not moved either. And it does appear that there may be a fire going on the position of the other Gyansenes down the line. And so it seems as though we just watched two Gyansenes SPGs being destroyed by the 44th Artillery Brigade, and great credit to them, as those artillery pieces will be sorely missed by the Russians, considering that they're running out of practically everything. We're now going to be moving on down towards the area of Orikov, where we saw once again another Russian tank get blown up. And this is the tank that we were supposed to be talking about earlier near Novomikhailivsky. But here's the clip. When you see the tank on the move, and poof, it's gone. Dude, the crew just went to space right there. Watch this. Boop, and there they go. And they're gone. The tank's gone, the crew's gone, everyone's gone. And that's the end of that clip. But once again, we love to see it. We gotta say it, we love to see it. It's great. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from all of the news that we got on the southern front. Once again, no frontline advances were seen in that direction today, but it is great to see that the Ukrainians are still inflicting decent losses on the Russian forces. We're now going to be moving all the way down to Kherson, where we saw this, regardless of what anyone's been saying, because I have seen some people saying that the incendiaries can be used against infantry. We may look at that in the question segment again, just to make sure that I didn't say anything wrong. But this is a war crime right here. We're about to see a video of a Ukrainian citizen looking out of their window, and you can see the burning of white phosphorus munitions throughout the entirety of the city, at least where they can see. And this is clearly a war crime because this is targeting an area filled with citizens and can possibly kill them. And so we can see the white phosphorus burning out in the open. And I always wonder, whenever I see the white phosphorus burning on the roofs, will that cause a fire in the building?
Probably eventually.
Probably eventually, I would guess. And it also looks like there's a small fire going on over there in that apartment. And we see something burning blue down there. I don't know if that's something dealing with the electric wires. I don't know why I had such a hard time saying that. Whoa, what happened? But with that... anyways, that's all the news we had to cover today. From north to south, east to west, that was every single bit of news that had happened in Ukraine over the past 48 hours on video and picture. We're now going to be moving up to Kiev to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 447 of the war. And of course, before we get to it, I have to thank every single one of y'all once again for joining us tonight while we cover the past 48 hours of news. If you did enjoy, make sure to subscribe. It makes us really happy when folks subscribe because it lets us know that people really do enjoy what we do. And if you also would like to subscribe and know how often do we run this news, we run it 6 days a week. It may as well be a nightly show. The only night that we do not run on is Monday. We take Mondays off, but every other day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, you can always count on us to be here at the exact same place, at the exact same time, covering the news in the exact same way. We also run fundraisers for Ukraine as well, and those always happen on Sunday nights, every single Sunday, and we've never missed one, even when we're taking days off like Christmas. We've still ran a Sunday fundraiser then. Over the course of the entire war, we've been able to raise 900, and let me make sure that the number is correct by going onto my phone and looking at the notes that I made about that. So let me get to there real quick. We have raised $956,600 in support of Ukraine. We were just around $44,000 away from reaching $1 million. And so if you would also like to help support Ukraine, this is probably the place to be. And so with that, without further ado, here's the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. Speech.
А зараз для мене велика честь представити наступного промовця, який доєднується до нас з Києва. Президент Зеленський, вам слово.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister Jakob's daughter, dear Catherine. Thank you for invitation to participate in the summit of our Council of Europe and for your sincere desire to help Ukraine. Dear leaders of Europe, today Ukraine went through a difficult challenge, an intense Russian missile attack. Such challenges are what we all have to pay attention to now. At 3 o'clock in the morning, our people woke up to explosions. 18 Russian missiles of different types were in our sky in particular. Ballistic ones which the terrorist state has boasted about. We were told such missiles would bring a guaranteed death because they are supposedly impossible to shut down. Russia used ballistics, cruise missiles, drones at the same time to make it especially difficult for our defense to save lives. But all lives were protected. All missiles were shut down, including ballistic ones. 100%. This is a historical result. Thank you all. Russia is trying very hard to improve its ability to kill. We are trying very hard to improve the protection of our people. And I thank all the countries and leaders who help us to improve our air defense. Altogether, we are showing what our 100% mean and what the power of the free world means. And of course, I thank every our soldier who makes this job done in our skies and on a land, and especially I thank each and every who trains our warriors in different training missions, which are all similar in one point, in success. Thanks to all of them. Thanks to all of you. A year ago, we were not able to shoot down most of the terrorist missiles, especially ballistic ones. And I'm asking one thing now. If we are able to do this, is there anything we can't do when we are united and determined to protect lives? The answer is that we in unity will give 100% in any field when we have a goal to protect our people and our Europe. And of course, there is still much to be done. Ukraine's territory is big, and to make air defense results like last night's the rule throughout the country, we need additional air defense systems and missiles. We also need modern fighter jets, without which no air defense system will be perfect. And I am sure we will get there. 100% should be our benchmark. We must leave 0% to the aggressor. 100% of success of defense operations is guaranteed by weapons and training of our soldiers. And I thank everyone who strengthens our defense. 100% of success of sanctions is guaranteed by honesty in every state policy. And I'm grateful to all those who threat the fight against terror in this way, honestly. 100% of success of our peace formula is guaranteed by diplomacy, and I thank everyone who helps us unite the world to implement the peace formula, the only realistic peace plan, and of course 100% of justice. And there will be no reliable peace without justice. And I thank the Council of Europe, each and every of you personally, for the decision of the register of damages caused by Russia's aggression. This brings closer the creation of a full-fledged compensation mechanism that will show the world that aggression is not worth even thinking about. There should also be a special tribunal for the crime of aggression, so that those whose heads this terror was born in are brought to responsibility, and I'm sure that we will provide this result for 100%. Europe has been waiting for such times when leaders would act in 100% unity and with 100% results for the sake of protecting Europe, for the sake of our common values. And finally, this is what we are achieving now. Ukraine, all of Europe, and everyone who is currently at this summit and who helps us. We are Europeans, so we are free. We are Europeans, so we value peace. We are Europeans, So we act at 100% of our strength when it comes to protecting our way of life. Let these be forever the rules of our continent. Thank you for support. Slava Ukraini! Glory to Europe.
Heroem Slava.
And so with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky, and of course, Slava Ukraini. And that rounds out our day 447 news summary altogether. Once again, it's been amazing for all of y'all to be here tonight while we cover this news. We are greatly honored that so many of y'all find us to be a quality source of news on this war. Of course, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We're about to be moving on into the second part of this stream, which is the question segment. The question segment, just in case we have anyone new, because we had about 7,000 people on live tonight, so I'm assuming that some of y'all may be new, and here's how our question segment works. You do not have to pay at all. You do not have to send in a super chat to have a question answered. We do answer live chats, straight out of the live chat, but we always make sure to cover the super chats first, because those people make it possible for us to run the stream. We don't run ads, we don't run sponsorships, so the only way we're able to keep this thing running is through their support, and so we want to make sure that we appreciate each and every one of them, and thank them for their support, and also address anything they have as a question before we get on into the live chats. That's how we work it, so do not worry if you have sent in a live chat to @Enforcer_Matt. It probably will be answered, most likely after the super chats are answered. But I always want to make sure to lay that out, because some people think you have to pay to have a question answered. You do not. The channel works off of a premise that everything is completely free. It's free to watch everything. You don't have to spend a single second watching an ad, watching a sponsorship, or having to pay a membership to the live chat or anything like that. Whether you support this channel is completely up to you or not. And so with that, we're now moving on into the polls. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and it's time for those polls. And the very first one says, Russia says it destroyed a Patriot missile system. The U.S. says it was only damaged, and Ukraine won't comment. And what are your thoughts? 58% said the Patriot was only damaged, 19% said unsure, 16% said something sounds suspicious, and 7% said the Patriot was likely destroyed. And considering that Ukraine did not comment, I found that a little bit strange. The U.S. did say, however, that it was likely only damaged, and I'm going to go with that because I'm assuming that the U.S. has some way to understand what weapon systems have been impacted in Ukraine, and they probably know that it wasn't destroyed. So I'm going to say it was probably only damaged. It looks like maybe a missile hit close by to it and not a direct hit on the Patriot. So probably just some minor damage. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it was most likely minorly damaged as well. I couldn't find any video footage showing where it may have been damaged or hit. So unfortunately, I couldn't really show or talk about that much. But I think it was most likely damaged and not completely destroyed. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one says, the U.S. says that Russia is trying to overwhelm Ukraine's air defense with large numbers of missiles. And what are your thoughts? 57% said that's Russia's new lame strategy. Now, 5% said unsure. 13% said true, and it's somewhat working. And 25% said Russia hasn't changed its strategy. And I'm with the 57%. I think Russia is trying to use all the missiles they have at their disposal, which is not many, to see if they can try to overwhelm those Patriot systems. It's really not working because, as you heard Zelensky say, they took out 100% the other night. So,
I would say it's lame as hell. They're obviously not. Oh, go ahead.
A little bit of lag there, I think.
Oh, all I heard from you, Matthew, was it. And I went, oh, I'll say, wait, is he okay over there? But I would say we're probably not going to see that strategy work. It's a lame one at that. And on top of that, it appears that the Ukrainians are still shooting down everything they're sending with incredibly good success. It appears that everyone is saying that we went through a little bit of lag right there. So I'll actually go back and start from the top on that one just in case. I would say, in my personal opinion about that, I think is a lame strategy. I don't really think it's going to be making any progress. We've already seen that the Ukrainians were able to shoot down every single, according to Zelensky, every single missile launched into their territory. And if we were to also assume that they were able to shoot down the large majority of all of the Shaheds that were also launched as well, these missile attacks are becoming far smaller in size, actually, if this is what the Russians call flinging everything they can at Ukraine. We used to see 20 calibers, 20 Iskanders. Now we're only seeing 9 calibers, 6 Kenzals, 6 Shaheds, that's practically nothing, and then 3 Orlons, and then some S-400 missiles. Really nothing in the big picture, especially compared to other missile attacks we've seen so far. And so in my honest opinion, I would have to say it's interesting to see, but it's not working, and it's a fairly lame strategy considering that they're throwing their most expensive and most advanced missiles at this point at Ukraine to supposedly overwhelm their air defenses, and it isn't working either. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
Right, and our next poll says Ukraine requests a total of 40 to 50 F-16 fighter jets, and is this request realistic considering the cost? It looks like 66% said yes, it is completely realistic, 8% said unsure, 11% said I need to know the costs first, and 15% said no, that is unrealistic. And for the 11% that said what are the costs, we actually put out a tweet about that, and the enforcer is probably pulling it up right now as we speak.
It goes hard. Feel free to screenshot. So here's our answer actually on the number crunching of the costs of the F-16s. Also, I have to thank Matthew for doing this. He did this earlier in the day, and we actually found the numbers for new aircraft and used F-16s or older F-16s. To provide them with brand new F-16s, it would cost around $11 billion US. So to provide that in a single support package, it would be the single largest support package I believe we've ever sent to Ukraine. I think the largest one until this point was around $9 billion to $10 billion. $11 billion would be breaking records. Used 6 F-16s of the exact same number, around 40 to 50 of them, would be far cheaper. At least from our numbers, it would cost around $2 billion. In my honest opinion, I think it would be great to send them F-16s. I pretty much answered this way early on in the stream, thanks to me, for some reason, traveling forward in time to this poll at the very end of the question, well, at the very end of the news segment. I think that it would be pertinent and very important to send them F-16s. However, for 2 reasons, I wouldn't want to send them the most modern ones. One is the cost. 40 to 50 brand new F-16s costs $11 billion. And while I'm all for supporting Ukraine until the end of this war, we also want to make sure not to overspend where it becomes more difficult to support them with larger bulk. We already know that regardless of how old Western equipment gets, it is far better in quality, even in quantity, than it is to Russian equipment. So getting them older ones, one, would, of course, still outdo the Russians in almost every single way imaginable. 2, it's far cheaper. And 3, there is a little bit of a national security issue that does pertain to giving them the newest and latest F-16s. If we give them the newest and latest F-16s, who's to say that for some reason one of these, and we've never really seen this much yet, but you always have to ask this question. What if one of them got shot down somewhere and it crashed and the debris field was within a Russian-occupied area or behind Russian lines? They're going to be able to get a pretty good look at the most advanced equipment that the Americans are able to field in the air and possibly start to try and work with it. And of course, the Russians, they don't have the ability to really work with it or produce anything out of it, but they do know the Chinese, and the Chinese would probably be more than happy to give them something in exchange for the information and parts that come out of that F-16. We would probably see that the Chinese would unveil a brand new fighter jet that looked a lot like the F-16 about 5 years later. And so, for that reason, for the national security reason on top of cost and also the quantity that we could give them over time, I would say it'd probably be best to send them the older F-16s instead, but I think it's not a question of should we send them or not. I think we should, but I have a feeling that older ones would probably be better as a cost-efficient means. And so with that...
Now, one thing I would like to point out before you move on is there is a catch to this tweet that I didn't add context to. It would cost $11 billion for brand new F-16s in the amount that they request. That's not including, though, the ground maintenance and all the other equipment that has to go with these planes to maintain them, nor the training, nor any other secondary costs. So $11 billion is the starting point, but that's not the end figure for if we provide these F-16s.
And it's not at all. And that's one thing I wasn't going to talk about either, because to even get over the hurdle, start talking about munitions, ground maintenance, and all of the training involved, we have to talk about the cost of the planes. But Matthew's right. There's a lot of added cost to these F-16s, especially maintenance. Let's say an engine has to be replaced on one of these F-16s. And some of you all are probably wondering, well, how much does a single F-16 engine cost? Let's pull that up. How much does an F-16 engine cost? An F-16's engine costs anywhere in between $25 to $35 million.
Damn. That's a lot.
And let me make sure we're correct on that. A second. Actually, it doesn't. Oh, a jet engine can cost Well, that doesn't help. It says anywhere
Dang,
between
that's basically nothing. That tells us nothing.
Yeah, that tells us absolutely nothing. It's like, well, an A380's engine is 50 million, but a Cessna's engine's 50,000. Well, thank you. But let's see here. It doesn't really give us the number on how much an engine costs. Huh. Where in the world can we find it? How much does how much does it cost to fly one for 1 hour? It costs $26,927 to fly an F-16 for a single hour. So, that I'm trying to put it into context here, although we can't really get a good number on the cost of a single engine, how much it really costs to keep one of these things airborne. And those are the hidden costs behind just getting the plane, is maintaining it, running it, and giving it the equipment and weaponry where it's actually effective. And those are hidden costs where it becomes far more effective to give them the older F-16s at around $2 billion for around 40 to 50 of them, instead of brand new ones at 11, and then we have to give them everything else to go with them. The training, the equipment, the ordnances, all that other stuff that are hidden costs. So I hope y'all see why I'm arguing that we should give the Ukrainians the cheaper ones, because it is about how much longer we can support them. The United States, compared to really every other country in the world, has an unlimited budget for just about everything. And I'm saying that in a relative scale. Compared to a country like, say, South Korea, we can outspend South Korea where we're running circles around them. We can do that with really any other country, except for the Chinese. The Chinese are really the only ones who can kind of get close to us, but even then, it's a stretch. But we always want to make sure that we're doing things economically. Wars are won through finance, and if you're spending money out the kazoozle, where it costs $11 billion for the F-16, and then you have the F-16s, and then you have to provide extra billions afterwards to give them the equipment, training, and ability to actually fly them, that's very cost inefficient. We want to make sure that the Ukrainians succeed, but we also want to make sure that we are still giving them the ability where we can continue to give them support, or people in the U.S. aren't starting to go, well, this is abhorrently expensive. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least about the F-16, but I would say we should send them, but older versions. And so with that, I hope that does address the poll fairly well. And also, Matthew, considering that we talked about this a pretty good deal, I would like to give you an extra moment to talk about it, since we were talking about this a good deal before stream.
I think you pretty much covered everything at this point.
Oh, dang. All right, well, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go, let me flip over my phone here, just jumped off the photos for some reason. Let's see here. There we go. The next one says, if Russians truly feel forced to fight, is it realistic for them to turn their guns on their commanders? It looks like 68% said yes, it's realistic to expect that, 7% said unsure, 15% said I'm mixed on it, and 11% said no, it's not realistic and have pity. And on this one, I'm actually going to be somewhat mixed on it, because I'm not on the ground, so I don't know exactly what the hierarchy and structure of the command actually is. I don't know how cohesive it is. It sounds in theory like if the Russians were feeling truly forced to fight, that they would actually all turn their guns on their commanders en masse and basically run off and surrender to the Ukrainians. But at the same time, a part of me tells me that's very wishful thinking, and that's not realistic. So I'm mixed on it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would actually say that's pretty tough to say. I would honestly say it's probably not possible, because you have to think a lot of there's a scale or a percentage of people in the world who act in certain ways. There is a group of people who are the ones who largely get stuff done. There's the people who, and these are very small percentages I'm talking about right here, like 1 to 2% that really do get things done. There's about 10 to 15% who will actively support them, but they won't be the ones getting stuff done. They'll just support the people who are getting stuff done. And then there's everyone else, which is about 70% of everyone that kind of just sits around and watches everything happen and just kind of talks about it, maybe has an opinion on it, but they don't really get involved in anything whatsoever. And you've got to remember, the people who would turn their guns on these commanders, they're that 1 to 2% of those units, like 1 out of 100, 1 out of every 200 or so. And so if they turn their guns on the commanders, there's maybe 10 to 15% that'll support them, but they're not going to stand up for them. And then there's about 70% that may do nothing or may even side with their commanders. Even though they're in terrible conditions, they may go out and have this guy shot for what he's doing. And that makes it really hard to say. And that's also why you have to remember that usually a lot of war crimes go under the rug, really whenever they happen under any military, because nobody wants to be that guy that steps out and gets slaughtered by his own unit because he's pointing out something they're doing wrong or he's standing up for something. That's also why you see that in countries like Russia where corruption's happening, you don't really see a lot of people making a stand there because they know that really no one's going to back them up. They're going to be one of the few people who actually make a stand, and once they do, they'll be put down by the people who are, that 1 to 2% being backed up by the 15% that is running the government and getting things done. So I would be honest, they should. It would be the right thing to do, but in reality, it would be very difficult to do. They would probably end up like the sledgehammer guy or all the other guys that Matthew and me have seen behind the scenes that have had far worse fates whenever they tried to stand up against what was happening to them. That kind of stuff has to happen not as an individual thing. It has to happen as a mob kind of thing. It has to be a group of people. It has to be hundreds of them together mutinying against a commander for it to actually be effective. Otherwise, it's just one guy who's going to receive some very severe punishment and nothing's really going to change. Things will just get worse for him and nothing will really change for anyone else. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well and kind of explain, while it's a great idea, there are some real practical limitations to doing something like that. And with that, we are on to the next one. I hope I addressed that poll fairly well.
All right. And our next poll says the UK and the Netherlands are working together to create an F-16 coalition for Ukraine to get fighter jets. And what are your thoughts? It looks like 69%.
Nice.
PSYOPs. Nice. He says it will make meaningful progress. 16% said it's just another stalling tactic, and 15% said unsure. And I'm going to be totally honest here. I want to be optimistic, but at this point, with all the excuses that have been made for reasons why Ukraine isn't getting the fighter jets, I think it's personally another stalling tactic. It's another way to appease Ukraine, so that way they don't get hostile and upset that they're not getting the jets. But in reality, it's not going to end up doing anything meaningful. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I personally doubt it. But Enforcer, what say you?
It's great to hear that they're doing that, but at the same time, I always feel like actions speak louder than words, and this is really a thing revolving around words instead of action. I would say that it would just be better to, instead of trying to create a coalition where people ask for an F-16, where there's a coalition that just gives them an F-16 if they have one. I feel like that would probably be the better thing to do. But with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well. I don't really know of any countries that have F-16s around Ukraine, except for Poland. Poland's really the only one that has F-16s. Why not send those? I mean, if a country is adamant about sending them F-16s, and now let me make sure, Polish Air Force, because I believe they have some of the more modern-ish variants of the F-16, and let me go check. So let's go down here, and they have F-16Cs and Ds, which are kind of the... And I mean, they're kind of like the actually kind of normal variant, one of the older ones from around the late 80s. You can actually see one of their Polish F-16s here. And this is fairly interesting. This is something kind of neat about the F-16. It doesn't really have external fuel tanks. Well, actually it has a special kind of external fuel tank that is also present on the F-15, which are conformal fuel tanks that are actually clipped kind of like onto the fuselage and kind of blend in with it instead of being an actual tank mounted to a pylon. And you can see these right here on this F-16.
It's a pretty clear photo. You can see like the little char marks on the side and everything.
Yeah, you can even see the powder from the 20 mil whenever it's been used. And it's on the F-16. You can even see that too. It's really a cool picture actually. But anyways, getting back. Anyways, I would say that if Poland was one of those people who wanted Ukraine to get F-16s, why not see about sending them to Ukraine and then just getting more from the United States later? That's what I would think. But then again, honestly, the Polish have given pretty much all of their MiG-29s to Ukraine. And so really they're only working off of F-16s right now, and they are already buying more F-16s from the United States. So they may not be that apt to do that because their Air Force has already been reduced by a pretty good size. But still, it is an idea. Also, they're getting some new jets. They're getting F-35s, of course, a pretty good one, for about around 32 of them. That's got to be an expensive order, actually, for 32 of them. And then they're also getting 48 T-50 Golden Eagles. That is actually a pretty cool look.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I believe this thing is a training plane. Yeah, it is. It's an advanced jet trainer, or it can be a light combat aircraft. And the version they're getting is. Let me make sure. Let me go back and check. I believe it's actually just the trainer version. So they're getting 50 trainer aircraft. That is a large amount. Maybe showing that they're planning on building up their Air Force even farther than what they have right now, because that is almost as many trainer aircraft as they'll have actual aircraft in the Air Force. But with that...
Wait, Mark Colonel of the LSA said, coincidentally, Poland has about 40 to 50.
And they do.
Really?
They have around 40. Dude, right now, man, Ukraine's going, man, if only anyone had F-16s. And Poland's going, if only. And they're like patting their stomach and it's F-16 shaped. It's like, but anyways.
Zelensky saw Poland and said, 40 to 50, I'll have some.
I like some, please. But still, and also I see Mark saying that Canada's getting like 80 F-35s. Everyone's getting F-35s. And a lot of, one thing that's funny is that Russia propaganda has been trying to trash on the F-35 and tell people that it's a terrible plane. It's actually far better than the F-22 because it will not be having the stress fracturing problems that the fuselage has on the F-22. It won't be having that on the F-35 due to an improved design. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And with that being said, I believe that might have been our last poll, but let me double check that real quick and make sure. Let's see. Yep, that was our last poll.
No.
So we are moving in to our super chat questions. I know that was a real shocker to everyone.
I can't handle this.
But our first super chat goes to none other than Psyops, who puts in a $50 super chat. Thank you very much, Psyops, for the continuous support. Very generous of you. And he says, in honor of Mark, Colonel of the LSA, 12-star General, and Destroyer of Fundraisers. And he puts a heart. And I'll tell you what, Mark and Psyops, the love is in the air tonight.
Well, I thank you so much for the support, Psyops. And also, I thank you for the honor to Mark, Colonel of the LSA, the destroyer of fundraisers. Mark really is the destroyer of fundraisers. He slaughters those things. In case y'all didn't know, he was the one who put in the $5,000 donation to Razum for Ukraine on Sunday. Of course, we couldn't see that because YouTube loves to mess with the fundraiser thing every once in a while. So no one could see that, but he was the one to do it. And I've got to thank Mark so much for helping out that fundraiser to get to where it was. It got up to $10,444, and half of that was because of Mark. I still hear that he is actually in intensive care right now because he broke his back from carrying that fundraiser, but hopefully he recovers very soon. And of course, I thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support as well, Psyops, to this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you and Mark, and really everyone else, like Trister, who else is there? Donna Olson, Heather Fitzgibbon, David L. I'm trying to think of everyone. My mind always draws blank whenever I try to make a list on stream. But if it wasn't for folks like y'all, this channel wouldn't be possible. And I got to thank y'all so much once again for helping this thing to keep running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, Psyops, it wouldn't be possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the honors to Mark, Colonel of the LSA.
Yes, indeed. And up next, big shout out to Fly Eagles Fly, who puts in a $50 super chat himself. And it's good to see you once again, Fly Eagles. Hey! And he says, in honor of no commercials, you work hard at it, and we appreciate all of the effort. Here's $50, and keep up the good work.
And thank you so much for the support, Fly Eagles Fly. And I'll love to know that people do enjoy the ad-free, sponsor-free thing we have going on here. Me personally, I hate ads, and I don't dislike sponsors. I understand why people do sponsors. It's completely reasonable. But we try and avoid making the stream look like a sellout, because there are people out there who have had sponsors, and it looks very tacky whenever someone sits there and goes, and, around 30 Ukrainians died in this missile attack. We're sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Not saying that there's anything wrong with Raid Shadow Legends or anything, but still, it seems really odd. And that's why we are ad-free, sponsor-free. And thanks to folks like you, Fly Eagles Fly, we're able to keep this thing ad-free and sponsor-free. And so thank you so much once again for the support and helping us to keep this thing rolling and helping us to keep this thing ad-free and sponsor-free so that way we can keep this thing on rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And also, I hope the Eagles win this year. You're a big fan of the Eagles, so I hope they win just for you. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this thing to keep on rolling.
All right, and with that being said, we're on to our next one, which goes to Psyops once again, and he puts in another $50 super chat. And thank you once again, Psyops, for the support. And he says, war crimes have different levels. Accidental, like clearing a building and accidentally shooting a civilian. Passion, like gunning down a machine gunner who only surrendered when his position was captured. And planned ones, like the Russian orcs did in Bucha.
And I thank you for the support, Psyops, and that, I believe, is true, but I'm not sure if that really changes what a tribunal would look at that as. I think it's still just viewed as war crimes in general. I'm honestly a little bit ignorant in that regard. I wouldn't know if there is a different way that they look at war crimes depending on what kind of category it falls under in that regard. But that is really interesting. I thank you for sharing that with me, because I didn't really know that there were separate categories that war crimes fell under. I don't know why I'm having a problem talking tonight, Matthew. Sometimes I feel like the words are just hardly coming out, and I'm having to like force them out, because I'll be like on a word and I'll just start doing that, and I gotta like force them on out. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Saib. So I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you for sharing that with me, because I didn't really know there was such a thing. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for helping us keep this thing running. And with that, we're on to the next.
All right, and with that being said, we have actually up next we have a total of 5 super chats from Psyops, all in a row.
Really?
So Psyops is about to have the floor for a good solid 5 to 10 minutes.
Good
But
Lord.
the first one is a $20 super chat from Psyops, and he says, Enforcer Matt and at Enderslayer sent me a link to something pretty special. It's on your inbox DMs, and make sure not to show the other joke I did. That's just for us. Love to Texas, and y'all helped us with those tornadoes in Oklahoma.
Hey, and also, really cool to hear that Psyops is saying that Texas doesn't stink anymore. We will also be checking out that thing. Matthew, can you check that out for us real quick?
I'm actually copying it right now and sending it to you.
Is it clean?
Yeah, it looks clean, but check it on the side screen just in case.
Okay, I'll check it over here on my phone real quick. So let's check this thing out. Also, sorry, y'all, I gotta be honest, I've been feeling really hot, and also I'm, not really doing that well tonight. I think I might possibly be getting something, maybe like a cold or something like that. But let me check this out. That may be why I'm like having a hard time continuing on tonight, because I honestly feel a little peakish.
Man, you gotta get those vitamins already.
Dude, oh my God, it's the Zelensky chair. Let me show this to y'all.
Say it ain't so.
It is so. And here it is right here.
Oh my God, how much is that?
It is 33,000 hryvnias. So let's put that into the currency
how much is
calculator. Copy. Ukrainian dollars to USD. I know it's hryvnias, but I can't spell it. So let's put in 30,000. It is 810 US dollars. That is actually really cheap.
That's actually not too bad for a fine leather upholstered chair like that.
That is really nice, actually. It is really the chair.
Wait a minute. It says handmade from the office chair like the president. Oh, they're marketing it just like it too.
Dude, that is. Let's see. It can withstand a load of 150 kilograms. How heavy is that? 150 kg to pounds. Dude, honestly, I'm going downhill quickly over here. I feel like I'm like getting the flu or something. But
oh Lord.
Oh God. Oh God. Oh man. But let's see. 330 pounds. So sadly, Mr. Lunchtime will never be able to sit down in this chair. Neither will Katarov. Damn it, Cheddar Man. But anyways, it is very neat to see. We actually found a chair, and it is just like that one in every single way. And it's only $810. We can see it right here. Hey. We can see it again right there. We see it right here. You can see it right there.
Wait a minute. Somebody said pleather. That doesn't look like pleather. That looks like real leather, I think. For $800, it better be real leather.
Man, it really do be the chair, though. It do be do. I gotta say, though, pretty sweet. They also have a video.
Oh, it's the chair.
It is the chair.
З натуральної шкіри люкс-класу для керівника. Темно-зелений колір.
We're gonna have to keep this in mind, man, because, like, only $800 for this kind of chair. Like, a chair like this, even getting close to this in the United States now, is like $5,000, I think. Like, last time I checked. So this is actually wild. You can get the chair for $810. I'm sure the shipping, though, from Ukraine to the United States would probably bring it on up into the 5,000s, really, like, in all honesty. But still, this is amazing. I didn't even know that you could get a chair like this.
Wait a minute, go back down to that picture of Zelensky standing next to the chair for a minute. Go down. It's
Right here?
Right here. It looks like he's a chair salesman in this photo, like he's about to sell you this chair.
He kind of does, doesn't it? But anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, really though, man, it looks like he's about to say, "This is a great chair, very nice chair. You should sit down in it. You should try it." But he said that we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the support, Psyops, and also sharing that with us because I didn't know we could ever actually get a chair like that. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
And also shout out to Enderslayer again, who Psyops said found the link. And big props to you for finding that, because I've actually looked for it out of curiosity and I couldn't find it. So I don't know how you found it, but good job.
Dude, Enderslayer is a real one, by the way. He's a real one.
Oh yeah, he's a real one. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Psyops once again, who says, "Can we have a moment of silence for Kadyrov?" Wait a minute, hold on.
Uh-oh. This is probably going to review. Let me get my phone ready.
I was about to say, a moment of silence for Kadyrov, that ain't happening because he doesn't deserve a moment of silence. But after reading the second part, I don't know. We definitely can't read this off. And sadly, I don't even need to send this one to review. It's definitely not PG. But thank you very much, Psyops, for the support. And what say you, Enforcer?
Well, I thank you so much for the support, Psyops. And we would read it, but sadly, we can't. And of course, you probably know why, but still, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running and helping us to keep this thing rolling. Even 447 days into the war, it's unbelievable to think that folks still support us 447 days in and have helped the fundraisers go beyond their goals. And I got to thank you so much, Psyops, once again for being a big part of helping this channel to keep on running and also being a character in the live chat as well. People really like you. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and the next one from Psyops is another 20, and he says, "I showed my mother, who has been a physician for 40 years, a picture of Putin,
Wait,
and she noticed the."
You can't hear that, can you?
Yes, I can hear that loud and clear.
Oh no! I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, but keep on going. Sorry about that.
And Psyops said, "I showed my mother, who has been a physician for 40 years, a picture of Putin, and she noticed the bluing around the lips. She recons its pulmonary edema, fluid around his lung/congestive heart failure."
Is everyone dying of congestive heart failure at the same time? Like, I think everyone's dying of congestive heart failure these days. And I thank you for sharing that with us. I wouldn't doubt that at all. But that is interesting to hear that it does seem or look like congestive heart failure for the large part. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and sharing that little tidbit with us. And also, I'd like to apologize, everyone, for y'all having to hear that sniff in the microphone. I didn't know y'all could hear that, and I actually moved away from the microphone and was hoping y'all couldn't. And I'm going to be completely honest and level with everyone right now. I'd probably have a fever right now. And it's been getting gradually worse throughout the day, so I think, Matthew, I actually have caught something. So with that, I thank you all so much for bearing with us. It's sorry about that. I hate that y'all had to hear that because I was actually trying to make sure y'all couldn't. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support, Psyops, and sharing that little info with us. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one from Psyops is another $20 super chat, and he says, excuse me, at JJ says, and also JJ is a longtime LSA Oklahoma. I forgot that part almost. And they say, "I haven't seen my Medyar in a while, and what the heck happened to him?"
Medyar, he's still alive. They moved him down from Bakhmut and on into the Volodar and Marinka area. But sadly, there's just not a lot of action there like there was in Bakhmut. So he doesn't really get on, isn't really in like the prime time spot of the front line anymore where he's like really a part of the action. So sadly, you know, he just doesn't really get a lot of airtime anymore. He is still out there though, and I do see him from time to time. Sometimes he makes it onto the news, sometimes he doesn't, but sometimes it's just like normal stuff, like the continuing of operations of, you know, making sure to produce ammo, and usually that's not like big pressing frontline news, but he is still out there. He's still alive, and he is still doing his thing. So that's what happened to him, but he's still fine. He's alive. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Psyops yet again, who says, "Can you show Pterosaur's Bobcat? It should be in your DMs, Andrew. And also, I demand a Shiba update and pictures too. We want Shiba. We want Mr. Corgi. We want the doggos." And Matt put on pants.
I
and
want
we want
pictures
all
of
the
Spider-Man. Well, sadly, we don't have any pictures of Sheba from now, and she is sleeping right now. We don't want to wake her up because she's kind of a scaredy cat, and she might get like frightened if we like turn on the flash on her phone and take a picture of her where she's sleeping right now. She'd probably be like, "What's happening?" So we don't want to. We don't really want to disturb her right now, but we will try and get some pictures of her later. We actually tried to get pictures yesterday to put on our Patreon for because we went to Topgolf and we were like, oh, this is really cool, something to show on Patreon considering we were doing something on our day off. But sadly, we completely forgot to do that. So we haven't been getting in the picture game a lot lately. But she is doing great. She's doing far better than she was. And she's back to her normal self. She's smiling. She's playing around a little bit. She's not really a big like dog into play. She's kind of into play a little bit, but not much. She makes sure that Mr. Corgi can never play, though, that's for sure. And so I would say she's doing great. And also, I will be trying to get pictures of her. Sadly, we don't have any right now. And also, Matthew, is there anything else I've not covered in that one yet?
I think you covered it all.
And so,
except for the Bobcat part about the DMs on Twitter.
Oh, do we have it?
Oh, you would have to check.
Let's see here. Let me go to Twitter.
Peter, the Twitter's here.
Let me go take a look. I've got to tell you, this feverish thing is not great. It's not great. Well, let's see here. And which one would it be, Matthew?
Terrorser Bobcat.
Terrorser Bobcat. I don't know if you've opened it already, because I'm looking through like 50 DMs right now. I'm not seeing anything that says Pterosaurus Bobcat.
Oh, maybe it got buried in there or something. Maybe it's in the message request folder, perhaps.
Let's see here. Let me go to message requests. I actually don't know where that would be. So with that, I think we'll try and find that as the stream goes on, maybe, hopefully. So sadly, I don't think I can show that one right now. But I do thank you a whole load once again for the massive amount of support and helping this channel to keep on running. We will be trying to find that one. Sadly, I don't really know where to look for it. And with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Charlie Nikhil. He puts in a $20 super chat, and thank you very much, Charlie, for the support. And he says, I've seen a few reports that a Patriot platform in Ukraine got hit by a Russian missile. I thought this was a mobile system that employed the fire and roll strategy like the HIMARS, and is this not the case?
It is a mobile platform, but it's only mobile as in they can move it from point A to point B. It is stationary once they set it up, because it's not really like a artillery piece where they like try and fire off a volley and move in like 5 minutes. It's more so they set the thing up maybe for an hour or so, and then they move it to another location probably about 15 minutes away and then set it up for another hour. They can't really keep it on the move too much because air targets in the modern world move so quickly that by the time they were able to set the system up and stop it from moving or get to a pre-designated position, the target most likely would have already been destroyed, and that would no longer be something that they could shoot down. So they have to kind of keep it a little bit more stationary than normal. It was damaged, according to the Department of Defense. We haven't heard the Ukrainians make a comment, and of course the Russians claim to have destroyed it. We don't really know if they were able to destroy it or not. We're most likely going with it was damaged. And with that, I hope that does answer that question fairly well. And thank you so much once again, Charlie Nikhil, for the support. And also, thank you for the cool t-shirt, because that's actually your profile picture now. And I actually have that t-shirt sitting right beside my desk. The same little image, like the Ukrainian cross with Bakhmut under it, is right over here, right beside my desk. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
And real quick, returning back to Psyops' super chat, he mentioned Pterosaurus Bobcat.
And I
put it in your DMs on Discord.
And I found it on Twitter. And just 3 more days.
3 more days, Papa.
Do I look like a real boy, Papa? And I gotta tell you, this thing looking like a real boy. I mean, like, look, he even photoshopped the shoulder to where it disappears behind the Bobcat cage. This is quality. This is quality. Matthew, we gotta tell Torosaur, this needs fire.
It is. This needs to go on a shirt.
This is shirt worthy. And so with that, thank you so much, Taurosaur, for the support in this picture. Really cool one. I like it. And also, thank you, Sibes, for showing that to us, because I couldn't find it in the DMs earlier, and I didn't really know how to find the message requests either. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you once again for helping the channel to keep on rolling and also sharing with us a gem. You also showed this to me on my Discord DMs. But I think you said it was from Taurosaur. I can't remember. But with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again, Sives, for showing us a true classic.
Also, by the way, this probably will be our next merchandise run, by the way, because this looks meme-worthy. I could take the background out of it, just put the 3 more days at the bottom. This would be a perfect shirt.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Damn, son. And I hope when people see that shirt, they go, damn, son, where'd you find this? But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Cindy Mitchell, who puts in a $20 super chat. And thank you, Cindy, very much for the support. She says, out for Mom's Day, didn't arrive home in time, and my favorite fundraiser, and send it to the chat, Sir Matt.
And thank you so much for the support. And I hope you had a fun Mother's Day. We actually had a really fun Mother's Day with Mom. We went and, let's see, what did we do? We got at Cod's, of
Pizza
course.
place.
And then we went to Capella's, which is our favorite pizza place. We love Capella's. We went and got some pizzas. We loved the pizzas. We tried a brand new one. It was amazing. I believe it's called the Palermo, and it is the delicious, most delicious pizza you could ever have. Y'all gotta try it. It's so that I thank you so much once again for support. But really fine to hear that you were late though, because what better day to be late than on Mother's Day? And also we will make sure to get a live chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, let's go up and get that live chat, which is sponsored by Cindy Mitchell, and it goes to, let's see here, You're Taking My Life. And that's the username, by the way. And
You're taking my life!
And what is the point of the incendiary munitions? What was the reason they were actually developed?
So the reason of incendiary munitions was the concept of, like, this is like kind of the premise. Someone's in a flammable, someone is around something flammable. They're kind of hiding in it. Let's drop something that burns on it so that way it'll burn down whatever they're hiding in. Like whether it be a building, a forest, or whatever. That was kind of the plan. And also, if it burned people alive, that was even better. At least back when those were, I guess you could say, kind of came up with. Because, you know, you were also killing the enemy and getting rid of their fortifications as well. But a little while later, everyone kind of decided that incendiaries were a little messed up, especially to use on people. And so they were largely, I believe, outlawed for a while in the Geneva Convention. The United States, I don't believe, ever actually agreed to the Geneva Convention. And that's why, while everyone else in the world wasn't really using incendiaries, we were just dropping napalm everywhere in Vietnam because we never really agreed to those conventions. I don't even think we still agree to them now. So technically, the United States could use incendiaries. You know, it's not really against anything because they never agreed to that version of the Geneva Convention. The Soviet Union didn't either, but I believe Russia may have agreed in the modern day once they became the Russian Federation. I'm not really sure on that, though. I'd have to go back and make sure to double check that information. So take that with a grain of salt. But that was kind of the original premise of what an incendiary was supposed to be. Also, incendiaries, in a small way, also provide a great smoke cover. And I'll try and show y'all white phosphorus smoke grenade. So here we go. So this is kind of what the premise was a little bit. So you could throw this little hand grenade. It was a white phosphorus grenade. This is a bomb, a white phosphorus bomb right here. Let me see. Here's a grenade. It would explode on the ground, and it would kind of drift around the wind, and it would provide a little bit of concealment for infantry, so that way it wasn't very easy to see them. Did it really work in practice? I mean, kind of. It didn't really work well for infantry, but it sure as hell worked for tanks. Nowadays, every single tank in the world has some kind of a white phosphorus grenade dispenser on them, like the M1A2. You can actually see them right there. They fire out the little grenades. They explode, usually in air, actually. They create a little bit of a smoke shield for the tank to work with, so that way it isn't easy to see, and they really don't know where it is behind the smoke cover. It doesn't really work well, though, if the wind is strong. If the wind is strong, it just gets blown out of the way, and it was useless. If it's kind of slow wind or no wind at all, that's the best time to use it as a smoke cover. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for support. And that's really all of the reasons why incendiaries kind of came to be. And with that, hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from the Avenger of Catfish, who says, Patriot battery, $1.1 billion. One Russian missile and a Patriot battery is knocked out. Should we send 10 Patriots to create a proper Iron Dome? And I vote yes. Turn your key, sir. Turn your key. 1980 War Games, watch it or be square.
And I thank you so much for the support, Fushikon. I know that's Fushikon. Like, no matter what the name is, it's always Fushikon. And I thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. Now, an entire Patriot battery is $1 billion. But from what we know, it probably didn't destroy or damage the whole battery. It mostly just destroyed one part of the battery. And let me see if I can show you all what a Patriot battery consists of. So let's see here. The MIM 104 Patriot. So let me go see what's all included in the battery. It's multiple vehicles. I think it's something like 6 vehicles included in it. Let's see here. Let's see here. Let me go back up to the top. So let's see here. Unit cost for a battery, it's about $1 billion. A single missile costs $4 million. So a Patriot missile is more expensive than an Iskander, which is what the Russians are usually firing, or a caliber. But let's see here. I can't find the exact numbers, at least quickly skimming. And also feeling feverish does not help at all with quickly skimming. Let's see here. A Patriot battery consists of about 90 soldiers. 3 soldiers in the engagement control station are the only personnel required to operate the battery in combat. Everyone else is really just involved in making sure that it's operational and moving it around. And so let me go to here. This is from the CRS, the Congressional Research Service. A great thing to find if you ever want any exact information. And also to explain what this is, in case any of y'all don't know, whenever you hear congressmen or congresswomen in the U.S. government talking about something, usually they're given a little briefing. And this comes in the form of the Congressional Research Service, and it gives them kind of a little quick lay of the land, a quick little briefing on what they're about to be talking about. Does that really help them? Honestly, no. I've never really seen anyone know what they're really talking about, especially when it comes to military weaponry. It's like they don't really read the stuff. But at least it's there for them. Anyways, let's see here. What is a Patriot? Let's see. Since Russia's Patriot is one of the world's most advanced, yet how Patriot functions. A Patriot battery has 6 major components: a power plant, a 2-vehicle mounted 150 kilowatt generator, a radar set, engagement control station, launcher stations, antenna mast group, and interceptor missiles. So you can already see right there, the battery has multiple functioning parts. Just the generator alone is 2 entire vehicles. It then has a radar set, which is another vehicle, an engagement control station, a whole other vehicle. It has launcher stations, which make up multiple other vehicles. It has an antenna mast group, once again, another vehicle, and then the interceptor missiles, which are inside of the launcher stations themselves. So I would say, if we had to take a guess, probably about 9 to 10 vehicles are in a single Patriot battery. So it would be very hard for the Russians to destroy the whole battery, because there's about 10 vehicles in it, and they're probably pretty well spaced out. They're not all going to be in like a giant clump. So if they say that a battery is damaged, that may mean that a launcher was destroyed. It may mean that one of the generator vehicles was destroyed, but not the entire thing was wiped out. So most likely, like, depending on the vehicle as well, it could have been anywhere in between $10 million of damage to around $50 million of damage, or even more than that. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Make sure to reread it again, Matthew, so that way I can make sure I'm covering this well.
Should we send 10 Patriots to create a proper Iron Dome?
I would say that probably another 2 Patriots would do, because once again, we have to remember that 1 Patriot battery is massive. It's a really big system. So I would say that instead of sending 10 of them, because that's a huge number, maybe 2 of them would be good. And also considering their expensive cost at $1 billion a piece, it would be $2 billion to send 2 other Patriot batteries to Ukraine. It's cost effective, and it's also probably exactly what they need to add to their air defense forces. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you that make this thing possible. So with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
I have to say, that is a little bit crazy that it cost billions and billions of dollars. But seriously though, speaking of which, I wonder what the profit margin is for the defense companies, because that thing does not cost $1 billion to actually manufacture. It must be like 1,000, 2,000% profit on these things.
But you also have to remember, whenever things are custom made like that, and that's kind of custom made, you know, it's not being produced like an F-150 or anything like that, the price does exponentially go up. That's why, and let me see if I can find this, Amtrak P-42 cost. The GE Genesis, let me see if I can find how much these things cost. Look at that. That is literally just a box with an engine in it and a cab. And I think these things cost like $30 million a piece just for this one locomotive. And let me see if I can find that. Dang, dude, I gotta tell you, man, the train people, I don't know what is up with them, but they do so much in detail. Like, you can't even find this kind of detail on, like, a tank from the Second World War, and they'll go into everything. Like, the minimum curve, the wheelbase, all that stuff. But let me see if I can find this, the cost here. Let me just see if I can type in cost. Let's see. Let's see, the author pegs the cost of a P-42 at around $2 million a pop. And when you look at this thing, I can't really see it costing $2 million. Maybe $1 million, but it is it's an incredibly simple machine. But that's usually how these things go. The less a vehicle is made, the higher up their cost is. And that's probably what jacks up the cost on these Patriot systems a whole load, is that there's not really a lot of them being made. They largely pretty much have to be made to order, and that's why they're so expensive, most likely.
It says here that it's $400 million for the Patriot system, and it's $690 million for the missiles, for like a full setup.
Interesting. So I wonder how much the profit margin still is on that, though, because we know that the trucks don't cost much. The trucks are maybe like $200,000 a piece, and you know the profit margin is probably pretty high on those as well. But I wonder how much it costs for the technology within the missiles, the radar, and all that stuff, and how much they're actually making off of it.
And I've seen some folks saying they're factoring in R&D into the cost, but I really seriously doubt that, because they're taking parts of the already manufacturer, like radars and tracking systems, and they're basically taking their parts bin and creating this Patriot. So they had to do some development, but not as much as you probably think, because they're already making those components anyway.
That's true. And still, though, we don't know how much they're making off of it, but it is pretty interesting to think it's $1 billion. I mean, like, that's not cheap, to say the least. But with that, and also a lot of people are talking about train spotters are another breed. Oh, I have to agree. Train spotters are into a very technical thing. Honestly, I think the train spotters add a lot to the train world. Because if it wasn't for them, trains would not be as interesting. I've got to tell you, like Epic Trains Canada, he's a train spotter in Canada. And someone asked, do we have train spotters here in America? Yes, but there's not really a lot of train spotting to do outside of like the area in between Maryland and Boston. There's really nothing out there in the rest of the United States to really look at rather than cargo trains. But there are train spotters over here, and they really know what they're talking about. Like when you talk to a train spotter, they know everything about that train. Like the Wikipedia article hardly goes into the amount of detail a train spotter would know. And I got to respect them for that, because they are really into what they like. But with that, hope that does address that fairly well as well. And thank you so much once again for support. And I hope we address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Cliff H, who puts in a $12 super chat and comes in strong with another poll joke. He says the question, what is Enforcer Matt's favorite Tom Hanks movie? And the answer is Apollo 13.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Well, that's not a bad guess. Apollo 13 was actually not that bad of a movie, in all honesty. It was actually really good from start to finish. And I got to thank you.
It was.
And I also got to thank you so much for the support, and once again throwing in another poll joke, because you're coming in with some very creative poll jokes. I don't know how much time you're spending coming up with those, but however much it is, keep it up, because I love them. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I love the joke. I hope everyone in the live chat loved the joke too, because that was a really creative one. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling, and also coming up with a really good joke, a really original one.
And speaking of good movies, by the way, I can't wait until that Oppenheimer movie comes out later this year. That I think it's Nolan that's making this one, I believe. He always makes extremely good movies. Interstellar was spectacular. I'm sure that this one is going to be no exception to that, too.
Hopefully not. Honestly, Interstellar is really hard to beat, though, because Interstellar was, I would say, an S-tier movie. Probably one of the best that ever came out.
It was deep.
Yeah, it was deep. It's good because of how deep it was. It was a great one. And so with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Hopefully, we'll be able to watch Oppenheimer in the future. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin, who puts in a $12 super chat and says, question from the chat, please, and catch up with you later.
And we will make sure to get a question from the chat. And also, we will catch up with you later. You won't be catching up with us later. We'll be catching up with you later. You're better to sleep with one eye open, but I'm just kidding with you. Anyways,
damn, son.
Damn, son. What? Call the cops. But anyways, let's get a live chat. And also, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this thing to keep on running. And what is our live chat, Matthew?
And the live chat question goes to Sea Dog Pirate, who says, should we give Ukraine our THAAD SAM system?
Our THAAD SAM system. Let me pull that up. I think we've looked at that before. The THAAD.
I thought that was two different systems.
Like the Patriot and the THAAD?
The THAAD and the SAM.
No. No. Oh, wait, is there a joke there?
No, I mean, is it two separate systems or is it one?
A SAM is a surface-to-air missile. So, like, a Patriot is a surface-to-air missile. A Patriot's a SAM. The THAAD's a SAM. The Buke's a SAM. The Javelin's
That's
a SAM.
what I was looking for.
Sam, what you do with that hot dog, Sam? But here's the THAAD. Very similar, at least in its appearance, to a Patriot. But what is different about this? It's been in service since 2008. How many of them have been produced? Come on, where's the number? Numerous. That's it. Just numerous of them. It's a lot. But let's see here. So demonstration and validation. And a lot of failures, actually. Oh, dang. It had so many failures by 1998, the Congress reduced the funding to the project because it was just not doing well. But then after that, it had nothing but successes, actually, all the way up until 2017. So it had a rocky start, at least when it was in its prototype phases, but once they finally started to enter around the production phase and finally getting into service, it was having nothing but successes. So that's great to know. At least they ironed out the kinks that it had at the start. And I would say, let's see here, sometimes, let's see, destroys by colliding with them. So, let's see, using hit to kill like the Patriot. This is interesting. So it's actually kind of similar. It's very similar, really, to the Patriot's PAC-3. And maybe that's what they're using in Ukraine. I wouldn't really know for certain, because I don't think they went into the exact details of what PAC version of the Patriot they sent to Ukraine. Maybe it was a PAC-2, because the PAC-2 is the ones that have a proximity fuse and they explode near the target. They don't have to hit it. But that is really interesting to see. It's a fairly similar system to a PAC-3, at least from what I'm seeing right here. And of course, this is a quick rundown of the THAAD system, but very interesting. Oh, look at that. This is a steering maneuver of the THAAD. It's actually able to do a full loop mid-flight and then continue to climb. That is nuts, actually.
Wow, this is an energy management steering maneuver. That's impressive.
That's impressive, man. And I'm telling you,
that
man,
wording's impressive too.
I got to tell you, man. I bet you the flux capacitor in that thing really helped with the with doing that. That is an interesting name right there. But anyways, a very neat system. Don't really know a lot about it. I would probably suggest not sending this because it may still. It's our most modern system from what I can tell, and so therefore it would be a national security risk to send it. It's not that old either. It's less than 20 years old. And so it's kind of still within that national security risk category to send that over to Ukraine. But still, a very interesting system nonetheless. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
And the next one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, if, and it is still a big if, the Patriot was damaged, shouldn't we judge the situation by the defense of the area in its absence, plus the time period to get a Patriot in the area up and running again?
And real quick, Matthew, can you translate that question for me? Because for some reason I had a hard time understanding that one.
AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang says that if the Patriot was damaged, shouldn't we judge the situation by the defense of the area in its absence, plus the time period to get a Patriot in the area up and running again?
And could you tell me what that means to you?
To me, that means, let's see, is the area still being properly defended? I'll be honest with you, I'm not really sure.
I'm going to try and answer that one the best I can, because unfortunately the wording is getting me a little bit confused. But I think you're trying to say, let's see how important or valuable the missile defense system was to Ukraine with it not being there anymore. I have a feeling it's still going to be there. Maybe only one of the launchers was damaged, or it wasn't a critical operating component of the battery. So I would say it's most likely not going to be completely absent. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. But with that, I thank you so much once again for support, and I hope that does address that at least the best we can. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling. I think I probably don't understand that one because I'm feeling really peckish tonight. I'm not really feeling that good. But with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again.
Peckish. What the hell is that?
Let me pull that up on the Oxford Dictionary. Peakish, peckish, whatever, man. Whatever. I have a fever over here. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from the Sidekick Armadillo, who says, 2 Ukrainians started working at my restaurant job all the way in New Hampshire recently, and I've been tasked to train them. They are nice, but they don't understand me, and I don't understand them. It's tough.
Well, I gotta tell you, you better not get peckish with them. I'll tell you that. Oh man, you know, I feel terrible. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I feel awful. But anyways, moving on from that, that is really interesting to hear. You actually have some Ukrainians working at your restaurant with you. I would say it's probably gonna be really hard to understand them. I don't think a lot of. And let me check this. How many Ukrainians can speak English? No. Oh my God. What percent of Ukrainians speak English? As many as 50% of Ukrainians can speak English. So actually, a large amount of them can speak English in some way, shape, or form. So it appears that you got the short end of the stick. And everyone's saying peckish means hungry. Well, thank you everyone for clarifying that for me. I was hoping it was the right word to use. It was wrong. It was completely wrong.
The only word the Ukrainians need to know in English if they need help, just say this: oil.
We're elaborating you. Oh, say, can you say?
The Americans will be there faster than ever.
Oh man, dude, that's what Zelensky had to say. We have found oil. The American army would show up immediately. The war would be over in 3 weeks' time. But it appears that you got the short end of the stick, though, because it was a 50-50 chance that they could or couldn't speak English. Sadly, they can't. But I'm sure they're great people. Maybe try and use Google Translator with them or something. I know that's not accurate, but at least it'll get the gist across, and that would be pretty cool. But still, thank you so much once again for support and sharing that with us, and hopefully y'all build a good friendship with each other. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for helping us to keep this thing rolling, and of course, sharing that little tidbit of info with us. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Craig Platel, who puts in a $10 super chat. And thank you, Craig, for the support. He says, per Ukraine joining NATO before war is over, Article 5 only requires that NATO takes such actions as it deems necessary. It can include armed force, but not required. And I actually have to refute that. If one country is attacked in NATO, I believe that the country that was attacked can proceed to Article 4, which is the convening of NATO, and then Article 5 is almost a guaranteed fact at that point. But Enforcer, correct me if I'm wrong.
So reading Article 4, because we have to ascertain that Article 4 has been, I guess you could say, met before we move to Article 5. The parties will consult together whenever, in the opinion of any of them, the territorial integrity, political independence, or security of any of the parties is threatened. That moves us into Article 5, where it states that the parties agree that an armed attack against one of them or more of them in Europe or North America shall be considered an attack against them all, and consequently, they agree that, if such an armed attack occurs, each of them, in exercise of the right of individual or collective self-defense recognized by Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations, will assist the party or parties so attacked by taking forthwith, individually and in concert with other parties, such action as it deems as necessary, including the use of armed force to restore and maintain security of the North Atlantic area. Any such armed attack and all measures taken as a result thereof shall immediately be reported to the Security Council. Such measures shall be terminated when the Security Council has taken the measures necessary to restore and maintain international peace and security. And so it actually doesn't say that they have to respond with armed force. It says it includes armed force, but it doesn't have to be armed force. So he is correct. It actually could mean that they don't have to really go to war for it.
Are you sure about that?
It says such action as it deems necessary, including the use of armed force. But it doesn't say you have to conduct any kind of armed force.
Let's see. But the first part, though, says that, let's see here, an attack against one is considered an attack against all, and if an armed attack occurs in each of them in exercise of the right or collective self-defense, they will assist the parties so attacked by taking action as it deems necessary. They have to take some kind of action. They can't simply exercise inaction.
Well, yes, but it doesn't have to be armed force either. It says including the use of armed force. It doesn't say the only option is armed force.
What are the other options?
Well, I wouldn't know. I mean, like, it's actions they deem necessary, so it could be nothing. You know, it could be that we're going to increase security along the border with Russia, and that's their action that they take. And that's what they deem necessary. True. I mean, you know, it just it doesn't say that they must kill whoever attacked them. It just says they can do whatever they see fit. It includes armed force, but it doesn't have to be armed force.
Then in that case, I stand corrected, Craig, and you are correct.
And Craig is correct. I actually never caught that before, but you are correct. Ukraine could become a part of NATO, and they could invoke Article 4, which moves on into Article 5 if everyone agrees Article 4 has been met, and then they don't go to war. They just continue to let Ukraine do their thing. That's kind of a lame cop-out, though, because it's like, what is really the protection of NATO then? Because, you know, any country, like hell, Estonia could be attacked, and they could go, oh, crap, Article 4 has been met. Let's move on to Article 5. And then, you know, everyone in the alliance goes, we deem that we're taking such actions as necessary as to take a fly swatter and have someone go hit Putin with it. It's like, well, that's not doing anything, is it? I mean, that's really not doing much. But that's really interesting here, and I thank you very much for the support, Craig, and sharing that with us, because I did not notice before that it doesn't mean that they have to respond with armed force. So with that, I thank you so much once again for support and sharing that important tidbit with us. And with that, we are on to the next one, and fairly interesting to see that they could admit Ukraine and NATO right now, and it wouldn't really change anything. They could just continue to sit by and just support Ukraine and not get actively involved in armed conflict. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
That is kind of messed up, though, because NATO, the whole premise of NATO is if one gets attacked, that's an attack against all, and the force that's going to be used to repel that attack is going to be massive. So that discretionary wording that is there, that seems a little bit sketchy.
That's one of those kind of cop-out wordages where if the country in the alliance isn't important enough, it can be cut off, really, and still be a part of the alliance, and they don't really have to do anything in response. That's kind of what that wordage serves a purpose of, and that really is messed up when you think about it, because NATO protection should be an umbrella. That should, if a country is attacked, it should always incur the use of armed force. It shouldn't be a conditional thing that everyone kind of agrees on or disagrees on, depending on the on a case-by-case basis. That's kind of a little odd, but with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. That was very enlightening and very informative, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Dark Warrior 137, who says, a few minutes ago, I heard my mom call my name from downstairs, but afterward, I heard her same voice from the closet saying, don't go. I heard it too.
That's one of those 2-sentence horror things. I've seen that one before, and that's actually probably one of the best ones I've seen too, Dark Warrior. And I gotta thank you so much for the support. That also happened to me one time, but it was just I was off my meds. Same. I'm just kidding. We don't take meds. At least that's what they tell us. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And also, I've looked at those 2-sentence horrors. Honestly, that's probably one of the best ones I've seen. Probably why it's most commonly known. Some of them are just goofy. Like, I went to go open up a jar of peanut butter. The seal was already broken. It's like, that's not horror. That's just like you forgot that you opened up the peanut butter before or something. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And SpongeBob, my boy, has just been executed in the live chat.
Oh, no. He said,
SpongeBob, my boy.
Americans are weasels.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to CK Bold, who puts in a $5 super chat and says, take a live chat question. And CK Bold, we will definitely take one. And thank you very much for that support. And the live chat question is going to go to Dakota the Bear, who says, how much is an electronic warfare system approximately?
It probably depends on the size and the ability of the system. Many systems come in great many sizes. Many of them are designed for the premise of warfare in the electronic arena. They could range from anywhere in between probably $50 or to more than $50. I'm just kidding. We'll try and find an actual number for you. How much do electronic warfare systems cost? Let's see. How much do electronic warfare systems cost? Let's see. The electronic warfare system of F-15J. That's not an electronic warfare system. That's a whole plane. It appears that the price varies so much we really can't get a handle on it. I would say, from what we're seeing, anywhere from probably about $30 million on the low end, all the way up to about for an F-15J, $745 million, I guess. But with that, I hope that addresses that the best we can, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from that guy. Yes, I'm that guy, pal.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me, you're not that guy.
No, this is that guy. Oh. And he says, I regret that I am unable to make more big donations, but thank you for dedicating a stream to Razam Im.
And thank you so much for the support, that guy. You are that guy. And it's perfectly fine. We are appreciative of anyone who supports, whether it be $1 or $500. We're appreciative of anyone because every little bit counts in helping this channel to keep on running, and we're greatly appreciative of everyone who supports it. I'm very happy that you did enjoy Razum as well, because we were trying to make sure that the fundraisers that we run, they are supported as best as possible. Really, our idea is getting as much support to Ukraine as possible. It doesn't really matter to us how, it just matters how much. So we always try and make sure that we pick the fundraisers that people will be the happiest with. And I'm glad to know that a lot of people really liked Razlan. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on rolling. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, it wouldn't be possible for this channel to keep going. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next we have another super chat from that guy who puts in a $5 super chat and says, Wagner has always been revolting, but now they are rebelling.
And Wagner has always been revolting. They've been disgusting. And now they are rebelling. And I gotta say, it's great. It's great to see. I like it. I like it. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Thank you also for a good joke right there. That was a pretty good one. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Terrence Custer, who says, Happy Taco Tuesday, LSA. And what is the best way to send you links to news that we may find in the net? Thanks for doing a great job.
And thank you so much for the support, Terrence Custer. And thank you for congratulating us on Taco Tuesday. We didn't have tacos today. We actually had steak, macaroni and cheese. We had broccoli, cauliflower, and bacon. It was a great supper. And let's see. What else? What else am I trying to address? My mind is slipping right now because, whoa, what happened? I had the flu and I didn't feel that well. And I sat here and I went to the supermarket and let's...
Wow.
And I was stacking spaghetti and what happened? But let's see here.
I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping.
When did he do that? Anyways, and I know the joke, but when the hell did he really do that? Anyways, I do thank you so much for the support, Terrence. And can you read his super chat again so that way I can make sure to address it properly?
Yes, Happy Taco Tuesday, LSA. And what's the best way to send you links to news that we may find in the net?
So the best way to send us links to news would be over the Twitter DMs. Mind you, though, the Twitter DMs are pretty busy this time of year. They are incredibly busy. I think we get about, Matthew, let's take a pot shot at it. Maybe like 100 DMs a day at this point.
100 DMs a day on Twitter alone, and that's a starting figure. And then on Discord, it's about, for me, it's getting to be about 20 to 30 messages a day.
And so there are a lot of them.
And then the emails, don't forget those too.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of ways folks can reach out to us, and we get and there's a load of them. So we may not be able to look at them, but that is the best way to reach out to us. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support, Terrence Custer, and also giving the offer of sharing with us news, because we'd be more than happy to take a look at it. And with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to that guy once again, who puts in a $5 super chat and says, this is called, by the Musk crowd, catastrophic, unexpected disassembly.
And I thank you so much for the support. And that is quite true. By the Musk crowd, and I must say it's quite musky in here. It is unscheduled rapid disassembly. A lot of people, and I don't know why. I don't really know why. You know, there's a lot of people, and I'm not going to get into the whole thing of, well, you know, Elon Musk is a political character nowadays, I suppose. I don't really know. But there's a large group of people who love Elon. There's a large group of people who hate Elon. And regardless whether you love or hate him, I think everyone can largely agree that SpaceX and the projects that they're doing is making, I guess you could say, the industry of space, far more ascertainable for a normal company. You know, it's not anything that's astronomically expensive anymore. And one thing that I didn't get is when the Starship launched, the entire Starship, you know, the booster, the Starship itself, when it launched, I don't think anyone ever heard that they already expected it was never going to leave the pad. And so when it blew up miles into the atmosphere, you know, after they had successfully run their test, a lot of people said it was a failure. And I remember like 2 years ago when they were just testing out the Starship itself, and the Starship without the booster blew up on the pad. I remember everyone said that was a failure. And I don't know if anyone realizes this, but the Falcon 9 also went through a similar process as well. Everything blows up in rocketry. Everything's expected to blow up until the final product. And I've got to say that they're making great leaps forward. I think that's honestly one of the greatest technological advances we've seen in space flight is the Starship system. It can do far more than anything that's come before it. It is revolutionary. I'd say it's really the Titanic of the space industry world. It's going to be industry setting from here forward, and definitely setting a very high bar and a high standard. And I don't know why people trash that thing, honestly. But yes, that would be a rapid scheduled disassembly. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
I will say, though, all the crashes and then the final success, it does make for a really good hype video when you put Gangster's Paradise behind it.
Do you know the one I'm talking to? You know the one I'm talking. Yeah, I know that one too. And maybe one day we'll actually see them work, and I feel like that'll probably be in like 3 to 4 years time where we'll actually see a proper orbit. But I remember though the timetable they have is way off, because like they supposedly were supposed to be able to do a full orbit with the Starship about a year ago, and now they're just getting to finally, you know, launching the thing and doing low, like not even low orbit tests, like high altitude tests. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from that guy, once again, who says by September, they'll be using bottle rockets left over from May 5th.
Yes, they will. They will probably be using those from May 5th. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Can't wait for the Russians to use T-34s or maybe cavalry. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
And the next one goes to Holon, who puts in a $5 super chat and says, I heard those Kinzel missiles are most likely not really supersonic, but were advertised better than they are, like Russian tanks and drones. And what are your thoughts?
And I would agree. It was advertised far better than it should be. That's one thing that the Russians and the Chinese do very well, is that they have a very good propaganda sector that makes everything they conceive appear to be invincible, and they lead to the United States far overperforming compared to what they really need to be doing. That's why the United States has practically uncontested air superiority for the past 50 years. Because we were so scared by Soviet propaganda at the time, we went and produced the best aircraft the world over, and they have never been topped yet. And even
the best balloon poppers in the industry.
Best balloon poppers in the industry. Yeah, they are great. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. Now with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to that guy yet again, who puts in a $5 super chat and says, I think I want green upholstery in my next set of wheels.
I think I would like that too. I don't know why, but I would like that. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I'll be trying to look into that. We'll try and make that an industry standard. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Rocco World Domination, who says, whatever happened to the witch from Bakhmut? And no, I'm totally not a simp. Igor and Slav Ukraine.
Totally not something as simple to say. But I'm just kidding with you. To answer what happened to the witch went, I believe, to a training field, and she's helping with the training of soldiers. So once again, she kind of fell out of the mainstream, which was the Battle of Bakhmut, which was where Magyar and the witch both made their names really known to the public. But they now moved on to other areas that are less covered and less interesting. But I think a lot of the simps followed. I don't know. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we were on to the next one. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running.
You know what they say about simps, right?
What do they say?
Simping ain't easy.
Oh,
man. Well, anyways, moving on to our next one. We have a $5 super chat from Justin Kasowski, who says, we don't do politics. And you are correct. He says, but if I'm going to work on the Enforcer for President 2040 campaign, I need to know if you lean liberal or conservative.
Well, I thank you so much for the support, but that would be a strong political stance. It wouldn't really matter if I did know politics on this channel or not. If I made a statement like that, that's truly raw political. People will know my political standing once the war ends. I don't want anyone to know my political standing while the war is going on. And interestingly enough, we actually got word that someone made some kind of a snide comment at us about apparently some people are too stupid to go into politics. I don't really think abortion nor gun control has anything to do with the war in Ukraine. So it's kind of stupid and really harebrained to say that American politics has something to do with the war in Ukraine. So we keep it completely removed. And I'm sure that even just bringing up those words are like triggers for some people. And we're about to see like politics spewed in the live chat here. But I'm not into politics at all on this channel, and I believe that supporting Ukraine is really the only thing that matters. I don't care what people have as a political affiliation, what they think, or what they talk about, what they do, or what their biases are, what their prejudices may be. As long as you support Ukraine, that's all that matters to me. And that's why we have probably one of the most interesting spreads of people from all over YouTube, because we don't make a political side. We don't make a political statement. I don't think news should ever make a political statement, and we view ourselves as news. We try and cover what's going on over there. And I don't think that you should know what kind of political leaning a news provider has. I don't think there should be a clear bias. I think that it should be completely unbiased. The only bias we make is that we support Ukraine unconditionally. And that's all we do. So sadly, I won't be able to answer the question as to whether I'm left or right leaning, because as far as the war in Ukraine goes, I'm pro-Ukraine, and that's it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And don't worry, you'll know my political standings in the future. And I have a feeling that a lot of people will probably be pretty surprised because, you know, a lot of people always have notions in their head, and usually it's notions that support what they think. Either I'll be left-leaning, right-leaning. Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Dark Warrior 137, who puts in a $5 super chat. And they said, you asked about when so-and-so, the president, mentions the Himalayas with Xi Jinping, and look up where he says America is a nation that can be defined in a single word.
Wait, reread that one again. I couldn't really understand it.
You asked when the president mentions Himalayas with Xi Jinping, look up where he says America is a nation that can be defined in a single word.
Let me pull that up on the side.
Whoa.
Oh no.
Starts proceeds to say 20 words for one.
Let's see here.
Unintelligible, one long word. Whoa.
Dude, C-SPAN made a special clip for this. Let me play it over here.
Let me close with what I've long said. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping.
Okay, all right. I'll add that to the repertoire. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And I hope we addressed that fairly well. I didn't even know that was a thing. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
Up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dubber Bob, who says, "Slav Ukraine."
And Slav Ukraine. And thank you so much once again for the support. Help this channel keep on rolling. I gotta tell you, I'm sorry, y'all. We don't make any sides on here, but I gotta admit that was hilarious. But with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again, Dupper Bob, for helping this channel to keep on running.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from that guy, who says, "Kremlin Kool-Aid."
Thank you for the support. And I guess everyone in Russia before the end of it is going to have some Kremlin Kool-Aid, perhaps. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Help this channel keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling, because it's folks like you who make this possible.
I can't.
Oh.
I think we're lagging.
Oh, we are?
For a second there. But I was about to say, I can't even let this go. What was trying to be said there?
I don't know. I don't know, really. I mean, like,
America can be summed up in one word. I'm in the foothills. What the hell?
Oh man, I don't know, man. It was a little spicy item, man. But with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support, Dupper Bob.
And moving on to our live chat questions. Up first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. Mark Hodges, C. Fay, JP's Gone Fishing, Cliff Simonson, and Earl Bernew. They said tonight's Morse code dispatch says, "Ukraine will send the Russians back to where they belong. Glory to Ukraine, and long live the LSA."
And ding, ding, ding. That's the sound of money, and you got that Morse code message correct. They are going to be sent back to where they belong in boxes. And so with that, thank you all for deciphering that Morse code message on the 447th day of the war, and of course keeping that long-time tradition rolling. It's always amazing to know that people have the ability to do that, and of course, thank you so much once again. It appears that what happened there, the audio that was played, it's got a lot of laughs. Once again, I would like to make this clear. I'm not making any statement at all about anything political, but I will admit that whatever the hell that was supposed to be, that was hilarious. And that was pretty funny. I also saw someone go, "Kufefe," and that's also a pretty funny one too. But I think honestly what was funnier, and this wasn't even from that person in particular, but it was something that happened under them, was when the official Twitter of North Korea put out DOTARD.
Dotard?
Yeah, dotard. I think that was like one of the funniest things ever, because everyone had to pull out a dictionary for that one. Like, they pulled out a dictionary to come up with that one. It's like, what the hell is that? But anyways, honestly, I gotta be honest with y'all, keeping a political opinion out of it, there's nothing but never-ending hilarities that come out of the U.S. government. Like, if you just watch it without really worrying about, like, the policies or anything, and you just watch it for entertainment, it is truly entertaining. It's hilarious, really. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, want to shout out Dark Warrior 137 as well. Apparently, I missed it earlier, but he also solved the Morse code. So, wanted to give him his due credit as well. And congratulations to you for also learning the Morse really well, by the way. And moving on to our next live chat question, we have one from AF Kaplan, who says, "Have you heard anything more about the alleged destruction of the Patriot system? I'm not buying it for real." Or, excuse me, FYI.
I'm not buying it for real, for real. I'll be honest with you, we haven't. All we heard is that it may have been damaged. We haven't really seen any proof of it being damaged. So beyond that, that's all we've really heard. We're about as much in the dark as everyone else is at this point. And so with that, I hope that answers that the best I can. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to White Lightning 777, who says, "Do you think that Putin will reveal Prigozhin's position as paybacks for trying to backstab the Russian military?"
Maybe. That may be the case. But it's a little on the fence for me on that one, because I don't really know whether they would want to do that or not, because it's going to be very costly for them either way. It really depends on how costly they want to be in which direction. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we're on to the... Oh, and real quick, I just saw this in the live chat. George Robertes, who is an old guard on the channel, he said, "You cannot sit on the fence for long. One day you'll drop one side or the other." Well, I can tell you this.
He does sit on one side of the fence. He does, but that's not the...
We both
that's politics.
We both sit on the side of the fence, but here's my thing. There's a time and a place for that kind of stuff. Why should it be that I'm talking about a war in a whole other country thousands of miles away where people are dying, and I go, oh, let me tell y'all about, let me think of a very divisive American political topic here. Let me tell y'all about abortion. That's probably the quickest one to go to. Why in the world does that pertain to the war? There's a time and a place for everything. There is a time and a place for American politics, but talking about the war in Ukraine is not one of those places, because that's the easiest way to go and start killing off support for Ukraine, is to sit there and go, it's actually affiliated with this political party, and if you're not a part of that political party, you're a demon and a devil, and if you support Ukraine, you have to be with all these things. I don't think that's right. I think there's common sense things. Common sense would be to support Ukraine. There's strategic implications, which benefits one group. There's humanitarian implications that benefits another group. It's a win-win for everyone in the long run. And so I don't want to sit there and go and say, oh, here's my political comments, because guess what? And then that puts a bias on everything. That puts a bias where people go, oh, I would listen to him, but actually he's from this or something like that. It just doesn't really...
It's really selfish when you hear about other YouTubers, especially in the Ukraine war segment, mentioning politics, their own personal politics, because they can't exercise some kind of restraint to hold back their personal beliefs to prioritize Ukraine. They'd rather put their own beliefs out there and potentially take down or destroy all the support they could have raised for Ukraine because they can't keep their mouth shut.
And also, this is really the reason why I don't go into politics at the beginning of the war. It is sickening, really, whenever you watch it happen. When people sit there and go, oh, there's this terrible thing happening overseas, and there's thousands of people dying each day because of it. Let me use these dead bodies here to construct myself a soapbox to get on top of and talk about my political agenda that really has nothing to do, 99% of it has nothing to do with the war in Ukraine. Let me use those dead people for some leverage. And that's really sickening to me. That's why we didn't go into politics at the start. I also think that news should never go into politics. I don't think news should go into their bias. At the beginning of the war, we were actually opening to talking about possibly going into American political news, but covering it in a completely non-biased way. And I think that's something that's missing a lot in the news nowadays. You can't find people who are unbiased. Wait a minute, what is that? Oh, well, looks like he's gone. Uh-oh.
Dotard.
Oh, no. He's gone. He was around for a good while, too, but he's gone. But...
Oh, Tony Goodman?
Yeah.
Dotard.
But... but I don't like...
What a nasty comment, though.
Also... Politics is everything. No, it's not. No, it's not everything. Maybe it is to sad people who don't have anything going on, but there's a lot more to life than just brewing over politics. Yeah, there's.
I bet Tony's a wonderful person to be around.
Hey, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's the life of the party at Thanksgiving, and is the reason why everyone hates gathering around Thanksgiving, because there's one person like him on one side, and another person like him on the opposite side of the political spectrum that just go at it on Thanksgiving when the whole family comes around. But that's what I'm all about. I don't care if I have a political side. I do. But I believe that is completely removed when it comes to news and the war. It shouldn't bleed into it. It's pointless. It's very selfish. And on top of that, I believe it's more important for viewers to decide what they believe. If you support Ukraine, then you're more than welcome to be here. Beyond that, I don't really care. And I also want to keep that out of this channel, because then that also further divides people. And this is about supporting Ukraine. And so with that, hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Steelworks Films, who says, did you hear that the Wagner Group was going to send the USA soldier back in a coffin and flag, stating that he fought heroically?
I didn't hear that, actually. But if he is doing that, I would say that's pretty respectable, but that's also trying to make it look like the United States is probably directly involved in the war, like, trying to make it look like it's official. So I'm sure there's a reason behind that, but if there isn't a reason behind it, that's actually kind of respectable. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to, let's see here, Anonymous, who says, can y'all explain the difference between the Scout missile and a Storm Shadow?
I sadly can off the top of my head. The Scout missile and the Storm Shadow?
The Scalp.
The Scalp. The Scalp missile. We got a...
There's a lot about that one.
So apparently it's a It may just be the French. It's just the French version. The British call it the Storm Shadow. The French call it the Scalp EG, but they're the exact same missile. It's just a different designation for each of them. It's kind of like how Concorde, the plane, is spelled Concorde as it is in English, but in French it's spelled Concorde with an E at the end of Concorde. It's just kind of like that. So with that, I hope that answers that fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And also, I'm seeing a little aftershock here and there in the live chat about the whole no politics thing. You know, I don't know if it's y'all. This is my honest opinion. I get very tired of turning on the news and it's not news anymore. It's just politics. Who in the hell even talk like I don't even see mainstream news really talking about the Ukraine war. What they talk about is the political spin they can put on it as far as America is concerned domestically about a war in a foreign country. You see, foreign affairs are completely separate from domestic affairs, and on top of that, this is more an extension of diplomacy, not politics. And so it doesn't really make a lot of sense, especially at all pertaining to something foreign, not domestic, to try and draw domestic politics into foreign politics and talk about them. That doesn't make any sense. Even if we did talk about domestic politics, I would lay it out neutrally. You know, pick anything, just fill in the blank here. Fill in the blank. One side believes this, the other side believes this. Why in the hell am I going to try and guide y'all to think what I want you to think? Why not just tell you both sides about as neutrally as I can, and then say you decide? You know, I mean, like, hell, and then some people go, well, some things are abhorrent. Well, good. Then I'll tell you both sides fairly, and then you can say that one side's abhorrent. That's up for you to decide. That's not for the news to tell you how to think. The news ought to be telling you everything you need to know about both sides and saying, well, now you decide. You get to decide. The news doesn't decide for you.
You got it all wrong. You got it all wrong. You got to force your opinions on other people.
Exactly. You got to. I mean, everyone does that now. Like, Fox does it, CNN does it, ABC does it, CBS does it, everybody does it. That's not news. That's bullcrap. That's opinions being pushed as news. That's not real news. Real news is when you neutrally approach everything. That's the job of a journalist, is to neutrally approach everything. That's true journalism. And then sit there and go, you decide, as the reader or the viewer, what do you think? That's what news is. What you get in America now is not news. It's not news in any direction, and a lot of the time they just come up with crap. Now, it's not even real stuff. It's just fake stuff, and they come up with it, and they peddle it to you, so that way you'll watch their show and they can run ads. That's what it's about. And I'm not for that. And a lot of suckers, they fall for that stuff, hook, line, and sinker. And they'll sit there and they'll watch this news, and they'll really get into it. Regardless of what channel it is, they'll just really get into it hardcore. And it's not that way, first off, at all, because once you really know how the governmental systems work, there's a whole bunch of just stuff in play at the background, and you can make it look any way you want. But, you know, there's still a neutral line. Like, you know, like with the U.S. as far as this war, nobody talks about this, but behind the scenes, nobody is really talking about, you know, how America should, like, run and hide, or how America should do things for humanitarian reasons. What's really being talked about in the White House is the strategic implications that this war is going to have for the United States 10 to 20 years down the road. And that's what's really being talked about. Nobody talks about that, though. And that's what it really is about. And so I don't know why people always get divided on silly stuff, and especially try and put a spin on their news. I don't like any of that, and that's why I don't do that here. And maybe in the future, once this war is over, maybe we will get in. I mean, if this YouTube channel is still running, and it probably will be, maybe we will try and cover American political news. But I promise you, up and down, it's going to be completely neutral. We're going to present both sides like the news used to do back in the 80s and the 70s, and I'm going to tell y'all, okay, here's all the information, and y'all decide. What do you think? Do you like these people? Do you like those people? You know, that's up to you. And that's it. That's the news. So there you have it. That's what I think about news. That's why I don't take a political side. And I honestly think that if anyone asks me what my political side, the answer really is, it's none of your business. I'm here to report the news. It's going to be as neutral as possible. And I hope I keep everyone guessing as to what my political alignment is. Because if you keep on guessing, you don't really know, then I think I'm doing my job pretty good. And so with that, hope that addresses that.
We can all agree that we want freedom, right?
Well, yeah.
Or does that become political too?
I don't know, but I think everyone can agree that freedom is paramount. A lot of people have, like, different ideas on what freedom is, but I think everyone agrees that freedom and prosperity is what everyone wants at the end of the day. They want a little bit of extra money in their pockets. and they want to be able to do what they want. That's what everyone wants. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Double Back Again, who says lots of clickbait-looking videos saying France is giving Mirage fighter jets to Ukraine. And is there any evidence of this or fake news?
I haven't seen any evidence of that, and I haven't heard anything about it. I heard that they were sending more AMX-10 RCs, but I didn't hear about Mirages, so I think that may be untrue. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I see a lot of people joking. They're like, he's a commie, you know, or something like that. I'll tell you this. I'm not a commie, I'll tell you that. You know, I actually have an aversion against, like, straight up, like, hardcore commies like the Chinese. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Melissa Smith, Major Bobcat Detonator, who says, do you think that if Lukashenko kicks the bucket, that Putin will just annex Belarus?
I have a feeling that, maybe. It's a bit of a stretch, though. Yeah, he doesn't really need to because they're already within his fold. And they'll probably keep within his fold even after Lukashenko dies, because who else did they go to? The West won't want him because they'll be economically destitute. And the EU is a very, very fragile economic organization. Like, look at Greece and the financial disaster they had in, what was it, 2013, I believe it was, Matthew?
Say it again.
The Greek financial disaster of 2013, am I correct?
That sounds somewhat right.
Look, I will say the Greek financial disaster of the 2010s, the early 2010s, because I don't know the exact year. Look at that, and then look how much damage it caused to the EU. They can't have financially weak countries as part of the EU. In fact, they actually wanted to kick Greece out when that happened. So they probably wouldn't want Belarus in because they're so financially fragile and financially weak. If they joined the EU, it probably would lead to an inevitable economic collapse for the Belarusians and then economic hardships for the Europeans. So they probably wouldn't want them. So they'll probably stay with Russia, even after Lukashenko dies. That would be my honest opinion on it. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to the Sun Collective. He says, how many Kindles they got left, eh?
We think they have about, maybe 65 of them left. That's like kind of like the odd, like, estimate number, and it's a very loose estimate, but around 65 of them are left. So they have a large amount of them left compared to what we're thinking they have in every other category. But once again, if they can all be shot down like that, it's not really going to do them much. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. We are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Stephen White, who says, do you guys think that if Ukraine takes back Crimea, it would make Russia respond with nuke?
It may. It's a really difficult thing to say with Crimea because this is what the war is being fought for. But at the same time, it's hard to say whether they pull out a nuke for that or not. I kind of lean down the 50-50. It's honestly a flip of a coin as to what they do with that. I wouldn't really know. But considering that they've come out with so many lame threats so far, I would honestly say it's kind of iffy. I would say maybe it's really towards a 30-70. 30% they may nuke them, 70% they may not. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to David L., who says, Matt, thoughts on CIA recruiting Russian citizens online to become spies, and I love it. And David, we actually joined, or I did, the CIA Telegram and watched that little video that they put out there for the Russians. Quite nice, quite nice.
It was very interesting, I'd say that. We didn't show it in the news night, but it was an interesting little video, I'd have to say. And it seems that the CIA is getting pretty open about recruiting tactics in Russia. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have one from Margaret Hemsley, who says, black smoke is fuel, white smoke is ammunition. What is blue smoke?
I wouldn't know, actually. I don't know what blue smoke would be. Maybe a firework? Smoke bomb? I don't know. Because I've never seen, at this point, blue smoke. Maybe it's a mix of both, and it's making it have a bluish hue? Maybe? But that would really be my only guess, is that it could only be a mix of ammo and other stuff burning that might make it bluish. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
Whatever smoke it is, Russia wants all of it at this point. They're going to get it.
They're going to get that smoke, man, on God. But with that, we're on to the next one.
No cap. But up next, we have a question from Pakatang, who says, how does the LSA feel about the level of U.S. support for Ukraine, considering Ukraine's denial that Russia was going to attack? How does the LSA feel about the speed U.S.-equipped Ukraine?
The feeling so far has been that it's always just been a little slow. Everything always comes right after the Ukrainians really needed it, and then it arrives. And that's kind of what we've been seeing so far. Now, don't get me wrong, the overall support amount, at least on paper, is huge. It's the largest in the world, and no one's even getting close. But at the same time, it always seems that while we dedicate that amount of support to them, it always is just showing up in the giant clumps just right after it's needed. Like, right when they need tanks, there are no tanks, and then a month later they arrive, or something similar to that. And once again, that's a hypothetical, but that's almost what it seems like each and every time. So while I'm very happy about the support, and I honestly don't think it's that expensive, especially compared to what Iraq and Afghanistan cost the United States, and those were happening at the same time, and we really don't have anything to show for either of them, and we have a lot to show in Ukraine. We're decimating the entire Russian army over the course of 447 days. And we're not even firing a single shot of our own. I would say that it's fairly good. And really, honestly, it seems as though support in the public is pretty decent, pretty high for it. I'd say maybe 70% of the U.S. public supports the war, at least from what I've seen. But, you know, I'm just kind of wandering around in public every once in a while, and I don't go out there and I just poll people, although polls aren't entirely accurate either. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Alpha 10, who says, as it appears, Russia is a paper tiger. Do you see Russia breaking up into smaller territories? Because they are certainly not a superpower.
They're certainly not a superpower. Now, that's one thing for sure. Whether they break up into separate territories or not, I don't really know. I could see the southern areas near the Caucasus Mountains. I could see them going and breaking away, like Chechnya, Dagestan, Ingushetia. I could see them breaking away, sure. But I don't know about the rest of Russia. There's a lot of it's been Russified. You know, it's all almost the same. And while there are some people who live in the central area of Russia, kind of in Siberia, that you could say are not really like the Russians, they're more of the steppes, I would say more Mongol in nature, like the Mongolians. I don't think they break away because they don't really, their provinces that they live in aren't incredibly wealthy, and they probably never will be, because it's an inhospitable area of the world. And so they'll probably stay with Russia, although culturally they are different. The Russians in between St. Petersburg to Moscow and all the way out to Yekaterinburg, this area wouldn't fracture because culturally it's just too similar to each other for it to really fracture, unless if Russia entered like a weird Qing dynasty collapse kind of world where warlords took over parts of the country. But beyond that, I honestly couldn't see the Russians breaking up into multiple equally sized chunks. It would probably just be the Caucasus Mountain region, maybe some Siberian areas. Well, I hear Matthew breathing into his microphone loud as hell. And then the rest of Russia would stay intact. Matt, you were literally doing this like that into the microphone.
I was literally 10 feet away.
Dude, I could hear that like nothing else. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Maybe other people heard that, I don't know. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a super chat. It's a $2 donation. Slava something, Sith Lord of the LSA, who says gibberish being the single word for the USA is accurate. Oh goodness!
What the hell? Are you gonna start shooting shots at the United States? I would say, if I had to give the United States a single word to describe itself, it would be industrious. Because, you know, when you really think about it, it's really it's bizarre that a former colony of the British has become as powerful as it is. A lot of the former British colonies have fared really well for themselves, but none of them have fared as well as the United States ever did. It's really a bizarre phenomenon in that regard. Like, for example, Canada, while it's much more northern and doesn't really have as much hospitable terrain as the United States, there is a fair argument to say that it could have succeeded fairly well, but oddly enough, it didn't. It does great for itself, don't get me wrong, and they have a great GDP per capita, but it's not the industrial powerhouse that the United States turned into. For some reason, wherever there was a will, there was a way with the United States, and it just kind of all came to be. And it's one of the few countries in the world, one of the very few, that can boast that it never had a naturally induced famine. The only one it had was an artificially induced famine during the Great Depression, where people, a few people, I think it was like maybe 2,000 of them, starved to death because they couldn't afford food. But we've never had a famine in the United States because of a inherent natural lack of food, which is something that many other countries can never say that they didn't have. The British can't say it. The French can't say it. Really, no country in Europe or Asia or even in the Central and South America or in Africa can say that. America is one of the few, along with Canada, that can say that they never actually had a true famine, which is a huge point of prestige to me, because a lot of people always move beyond the basics, and the fact that no one's really starved to death because of a lack of food in the United States is something shocking, really, compared to the historical trend. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Russ Rizzo, who says, I come from a stupid family. During the Civil War, my great-uncle fought for the West.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, I'm telling you. I come from a stupid family. Oh, a real stupid one. Oh, man, during the Civil War, my great-uncle, he fought for the West. Oh, man, I'm telling you. And it didn't get better from there. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Back when I went to the vet yesterday, he said, all right, I'm here to see you. Oh, man, and I had my dog right beside me. Oh, man, and he called him Sir. Oh, it was terrible. It was real terrible. But with that, thank you so much for the support, Russ Rizzo. And we got the Rizzler up in here. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling.
And the next one goes to Gabriel Mum, who says, I've only seen the Abrams tank perform well in dry deserts with hard terrain. And how good are they in snow, forest, and mud? It does not seem to me that they are well suited for Ukraine.
I would say they're well suited for Ukraine. We have seen Abrams perform well in mud. We've seen them perform exceptionally in the Korean Peninsula, and we've also seen them perform exceptionally within Germany. So I would say that they are well suited to that kind of terrain and environment. It would be very odd for a tank not to be suited for that environment, especially with the track width an Abrams has, because the Abrams has a track width that is wider than any Russian counterpart, which would give it better performance in muddy or difficult terrain. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Plexus Gaming, who says, would the Wagner revolt, will Ukraine provide ammo and supplies?
I don't think they would. They probably would just want to see the Wagner disappear, or maybe surrender to the Ukrainians. I don't think they would arm them, though, because it would, as easily as the Russians have been fighting the Ukrainians, and then the Russians, who's to say they wouldn't turn back on them and fight the Ukrainians once more? Who would know? But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Leonce Pierre, who says, the Patriot system around Kiev is great, but I think more is needed for the rest of the country. Thoughts?
I would agree. I think there should be more, but I think about 1 or 2 more batteries could really do the job. If you put a Patriot battery around Cherkasy, and you also put one around Zaporizhzhia or Dnipro, you could pretty much create a canopy over everything west in Ukraine where nothing could get through. Cities like Kharkiv are too close to the border to practically protect with the Patriot. They would probably be targeted a little bit too easily, considering how close they would be to the border at that point. But 2 more Patriot batteries could probably get the job done fairly efficiently. So with that, I would agree with you. I think they should get more Patriots, and I think that just a few more would do the trick. And so with that, I hope that answers that fairly well. And we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching tonight. We are greatly honored that so many of y'all have stuck with us until the very end of the question segment. There's 3,500 of y'all still here. And if it's your first time watching, I thank you so much, and especially for sticking with us for 3.5 hours. If y'all did enjoy it, make sure to hit the subscribe button. It always makes us very happy to know that people enjoy our channel and want to see more of it. And we run this stream every single day of the week. Even if I'm sick tomorrow, like dog sick, we'll still be running it. Every single day of the week, 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single night, covering the past 24 hours of the war. And so make sure to subscribe, because if you enjoyed it, it'll, 1, make us happy, and 2, you'll also be able to keep track of the news 6 days a week. And also we make short war summaries every single day as well. So if you can't watch a long form stream one day, you can always watch a short 2.5 to 3.5 minute video that'll show some of the highlights of the day's activities. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, stay safe, take care, and of course, Slava Ukraini.
And good night, Slav Ukraine. And whoa, I was in the foothills. Anyways.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.